Well, greetings. Mark, how are you, buddy?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
You know, can't complain.
That's good. That's good.
Today we are joined by Mr. Adam Klein.
Hi, guys.
Adam is a interesting fella. He has spent a good chunk of his time in the Navy as a seaman.
And merchant marine also.
And a merchant marine. That's the interesting part, yeah. He works on some pretty cool stuff. He's working for the federal government now and doing some pretty cool things. So talk a little bit about Adam and his life and things that he's done. And I want to talk about that incident last year in the club that you were a part of. In the club.
Last year in the club.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. It might have been a year. It might have been the year before that.
The
honestly.
one in Savannah?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. And we'll just get caught up on life, such as it is now. Today is St. Patrick's Day, so we're recording on Monday the 17th. So if you're even remotely Irish, good for you. Like producer Miranda, a little bit. Say good morning or evening, whatever time of the day it is.
Hello.
Hi.
Top of the morning too.
Top of the morning to you. Yeah.
What's Gaelic for good morning? Gia hoich?
Did anybody have corned beef and cabbage?
Not even a little bit. No.
That's too bad.
No.
Neither did I.
I had a tofu stir fry.
What?
Yeah, I made it.
Okay, why tofu?
Well, I mean, have you seen the price of eggs lately?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a good lean protein.
Okay.
It's good plant-based.
So instead of eggs in your stir fry.
Yes. Well, remember, I live in D.C., so eggs basically don't exist on the shelves past 9:02 in the morning.
Really?
Oh, God. I mean, everybody who works from home is lining up outside the Whole Foods where I live and just taking them all.
Let's clarify. Wait a second.
Oh, yeah.
You don't live in a cooler in Whole Foods, correct?
No,
Okay.
but in the truest form of Washington D.C. douchebaggery, I live in a building that is in the same building as a Whole Foods.
Wow.
It is directly. I cannot go. I have to leave my building to then go to a different door, also in my building to the Whole Foods, but it's like 20 feet. But yeah.
So you can't directly access.
You don't have to go anywhere.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you
It
can't.
was great during the pandemic. Didn't have to go anywhere for anything.
Did it deliver
No, they do, but I'm not gonna let myself stoop that low.
yet?
Yeah, maybe yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Get that microphone just a little bit closer, like up in your face. Yeah, a little bit. We'll work on it. It's fine. Oh, pull the
All right.
table. That's way better.
Okay.
Say again?
That would feel like room service.
It would feel like room service.
I
She's
mean,
right.
tell me the difference between door dashing like a made meal to your door as opposed to like the groceries, the ingredients. How is that
Now
any?
you could order like pre-made stuff from Whole Foods.
Yeah,
You can
You could do like
actually. You can.
like a roasted chicken, maybe
Yeah.
some veggies.
I have not done that. So you're okay. So if I order groceries from Whole Foods that are already cooked, it's better than if I don't know anymore. Now I'm confused.
If you order the ingredients uncooked,
Okay.
okay.
That's okay. That's good.
I also think okay if you want to order the whole chicken. That's
You know
cooked.
what? I'm
But
stimulating
what's
the
the
economy.
difference if we go to Publix? If I'm like, oh, I don't feel like cooking, I'm going to go to Publix and get some chicken.
No, that's fair.
There's no difference, except that you have the immense convenience of just some whole fooder
Just right
delivery
there.
person just comes right up.
Yeah.
Just comes right up to the.
I am not above like ordering online and then picking up in the store. Like that is a regular.
There should be an elevator that goes directly into the store.
I know. Bastards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a miss for them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they get plenty of business. So go back to this. You can't get eggs in the morning?
Oh yeah, no. So they so obviously, well, not so much anymore, but a lot of people in DC work remotely. Actually, even now, a bunch of them do. But and also a lot of people in the building near where I live work on Capitol Hill because my building is the closest apartment building to the actual Capitol, so it's filled with congressional people and
Yeah,
staffers.
like
and
VIPs in there.
yeah,
AOC.
AOC was my neighbor.
Yeah.
So they'll go into work a little bit later or
Yeah.
or leave a little bit later, whatever. But they'll be lining up like in Whole Foods, getting the eggs because that's when Whole Foods opens up like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Now, when you say they, you don't really mean the VIPs. You mean the people that work, the staffers.
Yeah, like everybody else, there's tons of people who are, lawyers for the Justice Department or lawyers for firms in DC or, lobbyist people and that sort of thing. And they all line up. They'll, if they have a schedule that they can work that way, they'll just go to Whole Foods first, get because I mean I'm usually shopping at like
This is
5, 6,
fascinating.
right? The gathering of groceries in the nation's capital. Yeah, and they actually have they used to have a limit on how many you could get, but now it doesn't really matter because
They don't have them anyway.
I mean not for me. I'm not cool enough.
So you're saying you have a problem getting eggs
Yeah, but anyways, but tofu is available.
readily?
I mean, usually,
Thanks, Bill Gates.
right?
Yeah.
Hey, soy's the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yes, I work. I'm at the moment. I'm on active duty. I'm an officer in the Navy Reserve, and I am the. Hang on, my title is very long.
Oh.
I am the program principal engineer for the medium landing ship program for OPNAV N95 U.S. Navy Expeditionary Warfare.
You lost me.
Yes.
Completely. Yeah.
Okay.
That was
so
a
let's before we talk.
What? Yeah, actually, yeah. It's a let's see. OPNAV N95 stands for Operations of the U.S. Navy. We're Chief of Navy Operations (CNO). We work directly for the N9, which is Navy warfighting, and that's mostly what we do is we direct money to different areas.
Uh-huh.
My specific in OPNAV N95 is U.S. Navy Expeditionary Warfare. So like OPNAV N98 is U.S. Navy Air Warfare. And OPNAV N96 is U.S. Navy Surface Warfare. So we're N95, we're Expeditionary Warfare. We do about a bunch of our stuff is for the Marines. So I work within the amphibious warfare aspect of that, and specifically I work with a new shipbuilding project. Just to give everybody at home an idea and you guys an idea, the movie Saving Private Ryan. Okay, you know that whole clear the ramp 30 seconds and everyone's in a big boat or a little boat and they go up there and the ramp drops.
Yeah.
That's an LCVP, Landing Craft Vehicle and Personnel. Later on in the movie, you see this bigger ship that kind of looks a lot like it. That is a LST, and that's Landing Ship Tank, and we're building a new version of those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this can carry...
When was the last time they had been improved or changed?
We have not actually built one of these since, I would think, the late 80s or early 90s.
That's
Wow.
a bit of time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're working on, first of all, getting the funding to do it, I would imagine.
Yeah, so the whole thing is we have to be able to create a program that is as far along as possible, as detailed as possible, that can answer all the questions of Congress, so that Congress can look at us and go, okay, you guys are not, full of crap. We'll give you the money so that, we think that the taxpayer dollars can be used properly for this. And that's part of my job is to a growing portion of my job is to write what we call requirements to say that the ship has to be able to do X, Y, and Z in A, B, and C time frame or capacity. And once we write those requirements, then we do reviews of designs that can meet or not meet those requirements. And depending on the designs that we get, we can make a selection on what ship will be the design that's going forward.
And I assume that the designs for the ships are coming from private entities, Lockheed Martin, places like that?
Not
or?
Lockheed Martin. I can't say the actual entities that
here
do
we
it
go,
because
yeah.
it is an active acquisition program.
Uh-huh.
I can't say what they're going on, but yeah, they're different. What we call industry partners, because some out there, because shipbuilding is such a complicated thing. There are people who are specifically ship designers that do not have shipyards. And then there are shipyards, and then there are other facilities that don't do ship design, but they do ship repair and sometimes ship construction. So a lot of times they will partner up, and then they'll say like, okay, well, we'll build this ship using that person's yard, or we'll use their design at that person's yard, and it's a whole thing.
And these are all building
They
domestically.
collaborate.
Yes, every ship that is built in every ship for the United States that flies a U.S. flag, either commercial or military, must be built in the United States by law. It's called the Jones Act.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing.
No, I gotta imagine it takes forever to get done, though, right?
Oh yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah. We've been working on this one project for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, this one. I started it in October of 2023, and we have made massive progress. Actually, even despite a few setbacks, we made incredible progress with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you end up doing that? Let's take the
What got you there?
Look, I'm here.
let's take the listeners and the viewers that are hopefully here on YouTube. I gotta move this microphone, and That's way better. And talk to us a little bit about, how you wound up, first of all, in the Navy and coming from like your background when you were young. What makes you decide that this is the path that was going to be, not only successful for you, obviously, but also, filled that like need, the desire to be of service.
Yeah. So going into the service was
Young
always
Adam,
young
thanks.
little baby
Little
Adam.
baby, tiny 6 pound, 8 ounce.
Yeah, I was 9 pounds 5 ounces. I was
Jesus.
a load.
Oh my God.
That's a load.
Yeah,
Yeah.
My poor mother.
Yeah.
Yes, dude, they the joke was in the hospital when I was born was who gave birth to the 3-month-old.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was born on a Friday afternoon in July. Okay, we'll skip over that. So, one thing I like to joke about here, not like to joke about, but one thing I try to say is that
joking is fun.
everybody on my father's side of the family, well, we won't go too into deep, but my great grandfather, Nicholas, he is the only member of his family to actually survive the camps. He came over before.
Oh, okay.
He was drafted in the Hungarian army in World War I. He fled, came to the U.S., was drafted into the U.S. Army, but he was a steam fitter, and he had a special skill, so he was able to avoid the draft. And everybody else in his family, all the clients from Hungary, none of them survived the following war, World War II, except for 3 sisters, actually, who have a very interesting story. But the joke is that everybody in my family is on my father's side is born with a debt. So at some point, we all do public service of some kind. My grandfather, he was drafted in World War II. He landed at Normandy, which is actually kind of interesting that he had actually landed in an amphibious operation, the largest amphibious operation of all time, and here I am working for the Marine Corps to help them build their next big amphibious ship.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then my father was a firefighter. My sister did mediation for people in prison and their families. 2 of my great uncles were teachers. One was a teacher, one was a counselor. My cousin runs a psychiatric counseling school clinic for the under and uninsured of New York area. So everyone kind of jumps into the let me help my community in some way.
Yeah.
And mine, I always kind of, I was raised on my grandfather's war stories, and it was just something that I always felt really attracted to. And I was actually trying to go to the Naval Academy first. I was a football recruit there, and I was a football recruit to the Merchant Marine Academy. And the Naval Academy wanted me to go to prep school for the first year, and I was like, I don't want to do another year of crap. I really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I went to the Merchant Marine Academy, and I played football there for a year. And then I was like, I don't want to play football anymore. This sucks. This is exhausting. So I joined rugby. But anyways, at the Merchant Marine Academy, you are trained how to be an officer in the U.S. Merchant Marine and also in the U.S. military, depending on what branch you want to go into. And by Merchant Marine, I mean either engineer or deck officer. So I picked the engineering route, and I got a degree in marine engineering systems with a concentration in nuclear engineering. And then when I graduated, I was supposed to go into the Marine Corps. Growing up, I just wanted to be a Marine. It was like blinders on everything else. My mother is still mad at me to this day that I didn't apply to West Point because I don't want to be in the Army. Screw that.
Right.
Won't go into the details, but the Marines and I did not work out due to a bureaucratic issue.
Wait a minute. No.
All right.
No, we're not
skipping over that.
We're not glossing that one over.
Okay, so
we got to hear that.
I had a what we call a liaison officer at the academy, and he was the kind of person who ran what we called the Marine Corps option program, and he did not like me.
Because
I cannot run fast.
Is your little legs?
I have tiny little legs.
Yeah.
I'm a football player, and it is. I was just So for those out listening in the world, the Marines run with what they call a PFT, and it's 3 things. At the time when I was doing it, it's sit-ups, it is 3-mile run, and pull-ups. And to do a max PFT, you have to be able to do 100 sit-ups, which is pretty easy, 20 pull-ups, and then run 3 miles in 18 minutes. Failure for men in my age range was 24 minutes, and for 3 years, I kept coming in at 24:15, 24:05. It was
Your little legs.
Yeah, it's an 8-minute mile. That's not. I just really wish that was I really wish failure was not such a good standard.
Yeah.
But anyways, he did not like me. And then after I tore my ACL playing rugby, he really did not like me.
I really didn't like that, did he?
No, so I came back from C. Oh, by the way, Merchant Marine Academy, you have to go to C twice, once during your sophomore year and once during your junior year, and combined they equal 1 calendar year. That's part of the retraining requirement to get your Coast Guard license. I came back from C my second time.
What year was this?
This was in 2010.
Okay.
And I was supposed to go to what they call PLC seniors.
So you were like 21?
I was 21. Yes, I was.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't turned 21 yet during this thing. This was spring of 2010, so I was still 20, but I hadn't turned 21 yet. He had said, "Okay, well, we'll do a PFT, and we'll see how you are before you go to PLC." PLC stands for Platoon Leadership Course. It's one of the ways that they create officers for the Marines. They have 2 things, well, 3 if you count Leatherneck for the Naval Academy. But anyways, seniors is the second half of it. Because we went to the academy, we got a waiver for the first half. So I'm doing the whole thing, and I get my 20 pull-ups, and I get my 100 sit-ups, and now it's time for the run. And I'm 8 months removed from an ACL surgery, and I said, hey, and I just got off a ship. I was like, hey, I have not ran in 6 months. I've done jump rope, and I've done all these things. I don't know if I actually can run 3 miles straight. But can we break it up into 1 mile increments and give me a minute rest in between so I can stretch right? Because I had got off a ship the day before, and he goes, okay, yeah, sure, we'll do that. So a mile goes in, I'm doing great. I'm at a 7:15 mile pace. I'm like, okay, well, this is good. I was like, okay, can I get off and stretch for a little bit? He goes, you kidding me? What the heck are you talking about? I was like, I thought I thought we could do it in 3 things. He says, get off, you failed. And he pulled my packages for PLC. So Marine Corps, you are allowed 4 packages to apply. He pulled both for both phases of PLC for me. Not withdrew them, but pulled them as in I no longer qualified in some way. So those are 2 strikes against me. After graduation, I deferred my commission in the Navy to go to what they call OCC, which is Officer Candidate Course, which is a 10-week program. And I wasn't selected for the first round, which we kind of knew going into it because the first round is in November. That's when everybody who's coming out of all the different academies, all the different things, they kind of flood the system, and everyone else kind of gets pushed away. But for the January course, I also wasn't selected, which is extremely odd. And I reached out to later on. I was trying to get my information together to go in the Navy, go in the Army, whatever, what have you. And they had all my physicals and stuff. And I called up the office where all of it was. And they go, we can't find your things anywhere. We don't know what's going on. Well, it turns out that they had filed all of the academy grads. We are supposed to be filed in the prior enlisted group. So people who are given extra consideration so that their lower GPA, maybe their lower fit rep score, maybe their lower PFT score, or if they have waivers for tattoos or an injury or something along those lines, it's not seen as bad for them. We were supposed to be in that group. We were not. We were in the people who got communication majors from the local state colleges and stuff, and we just weren't selected.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I ended up in the Navy, Navy Reserves.
Okay. We gotta stop for 1 second. Okay, cool.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so picking up where we left off. Why does my microphone sound like that? I feel like I got to get it right up here. So all that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get. So would you say that your ideal outcome would have been to go to be an officer in the Marines?
It's funny. Can I come back to that answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so after the Navy, after the Marine Corps says no, I do this dance around with the Navy nuclear program. It ended up not working out, just because one side of the government was like, "We got to get your commission now. You're too late. You're too delayed," and the other one was like, "No, we need to delay this. So we can't give you a commission right away." Anyways, I didn't feel like being dicked around anymore. So I, joined what we call the SSO program, the Merchant Marine Reserve, which is what I was supposed to go into, which most Merchant Marine grads go into. And then I joined, then I started what we call sailing on my license. And I jumped on a ship in, actually, it was not St. Patrick's Day. It was shortly after St. Patrick's Day of 2012. Ooh. And I sailed on my license for, until 2019. No, almost 2020. and seesawing between sailing my license as an engineering officer and then also going into what we call doing our AT or active time or ADT, active duty for training with the Navy Reserve, that would have me basically do that work but with the Navy, because the Navy likes it because they don't have to pay for me to do training or things along those lines. I could just show up and be like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 weeks fixing this part of the ship.
And they just kind of direct you and say, these are the here's your checklist, right?
Yeah, and it's it's weird in the fact that you show up in the Navy, and in some cases you know more than everybody there, up to like the rank of captain, which is very high in the Navy.
Is that because as an engineer you're expected to know so much about the functionality of the totality of the ship?
Correct. You have to. What the Academy does and what the training program for the Merchant Marine does, what does a really good job, is it teaches you how to learn. It teaches you how to ask questions. It teaches you how to be wrong and know how to be wrong in a safe way, which is great because when you learn that, you can then teach that when you become a senior officer. So you walk into a ship where, in the Navy, it's very structured and regimented. Like, there's a problem, you go out to the manual, and the manual has to, guide you through the whole thing. Whereas, Megan?
No, it went off. Why did it do that?
I don't know. Is it plugged in?
It is.
Yeah. I just heard it go off.
It should not go off.
It's now recording again, but
Weird.
yeah.
It's going to be one of those days.
No. It's drunk. St.
It's
Patrick's
okay.
Day.
It's not super important, like, since we have the other two going, but that should not happen. Continue.
Okay. So sometimes you walk in and, the way that the whatever you're working on, sometimes it's like, okay, this is the easiest thing in the world. Like, you guys, let's put the book away. Come with me. We'll get it sorted out real quick. Other times you walk in and you quite literally need to learn the language of the area that you're in. Like, they'll start speaking in 17 acronyms in a row and you have no idea what it is. And
Kind of like the way you started this thing.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That's a great point of it.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting in the fact that there you are. Sometimes I'd walk into a place as a Navy lieutenant, which is a captain in the Army, equivalent, and you're supposed to be dictating things, and I'm like, I have genuinely no idea what we're talking about right now, guys. Like, all right.
Who put me here? Who said I could do this?
Yeah. So it's interesting in that way. And then, so the way it works in the engineering field in the Merchant Marine is you have four quote unquote ranks. Technically, they're licenses. There's third engineer, second engineer, first engineer, and chief engineer. I have a chief engineer's license. It's also broken down by plant type. Plant being the type of propulsion plant. So there's steam, diesel, which we call motor, and gas turbine. And I have my chief steam and my chief diesel, and my third's gas turbine. Because I never sailed on a gas turbine ship, at least not as an officer.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and you work your way up, and the more time you sail on one license, the way you are able to advance. If you test, you have to actually, you have to get your time, then you have to study for a test, and then test, and they give you the higher license. So by the end of it, when you're sailing first engineer, chief engineer, so when you're first starting out, you're third, genuinely nothing except you think you know everything, and you work a lot on the sewage system. We sometimes call that the third. And then you work on water systems and oil systems, because those are the ones that are the most difficult to break.
Yeah.
And then when you're a second engineer, you work on you work on the auxiliary steam, and you work on fuel, because those are the ones that are the most, they need the most attention. Like, it's not a ton of work, but if something goes wrong, it goes wrong real bad. And then when you're a first engineer, you're half of manager and half like electrician, and kind of like you fill in for everybody else. And then when you're a chief engineer, you're basically doing engineering business.
So who sets the standard for when they're like right now you're building this or getting the appropriate funds and getting all who sets the standard for kind of how the ships are manufactured, and then in turn who trains you guys to understand how that all works?
That's a good question, actually, because so the standards for what a ship is built to in the United States is called ABS, and that's the American Bureau of Shipping.
Okay.
In the rest of the world, there are three main other ones. There is DNV, which is Der North Veritas, which is basically mean the Norwegian truth. That's what it translates to. And then you have Bureau Veritas, which is from the Netherlands. And then you have Lloyd's, which is from the United Kingdom, and they're all kind of the same, except sometimes they'll focus on different things. Like DNV will do a lot with cold weather vessels or icebreakers, whereas Lloyd's will do more with tankers because they have a bigger one. They have a bigger tanker fleet in the United Kingdom. Then understanding that is half of the problem. I don't want to call it problem. The other portion of it is what the ship needs to be able to do. And that is, we get part of that from the Marine Corps, if we're building for the Marines, or the Navy, the Navy standards. And then we as a team will write the requirements, which is what that was. And the training for it is, you kind of have to, do it for your job. Like you only can get to this point after you've worked a certain number of jobs in a certain area. It is learnable, but it is difficult to understand what things are and what things mean when you're just reading it out of a book. You good there, Mark? You getting choked up about the U.S. shipbuilding industry? Really, it's a big thing.
7 of this terrible cough that he can not get rid of.
Got the crud.
Yeah.
Is this for this one?
No. So there is an overall, overseen is not the right word, I don't think, but there is a standard that's set by the D.
So there is actually a good way to think about it is, how when you're building a building.
Nope.
Okay. So, cars. There are actually a better one, maybe steel. No, cars are fine. So, in building of a car, every car is built to a certain level of requirements, and a lot of them are built to certain standards. And these standards are set by the federal government, the automotive industry. There is a private entity that oversees the review of car designs. Make sure the engine doesn't put out bad fumes. Make sure
NGOs.
Not necessarily an NGO, more of like, really, to be honest with you, we call them classification societies in shipbuilding. What they basically are is they're basically people who say, okay, you're supposed to build this to a standard. We're going to say that it is, and that way you can get insurance. So basically, they're the middleman in providing the money. So if something goes wrong, and they're like, well, what the hell went wrong? We were classed to ABS. ABS will obviously come on board and they'll do an inspection. And then then they'll say, okay, we made sure that they're up to our standards. Now you can insure them. So that's kind of one entity. But at the same time, you also have the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard are like the police. They'll come on and they'll make sure that, their requirements and their standards are met. And they do walk hand in hand pretty often, like hand in glove. But they focus on different things, whereas the Coast Guard will focus a lot on like personnel safety. Make sure your firefighting equipment is really good. Make sure that one of the big ones for them is that electrical systems, if they fail, they're not going to fail in a dangerous way. Whereas ABS is going to do a lot more with, they're going to do that too, but they're going to do the one big one that we had once was making sure that our tank vents were proper, because it was an older ship, and they're like, we got to make sure that this is going to be what it's supposed to be, because that's where, if there's a fire, the tank vents are sometimes very important in that. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. And this happens every single day across every faction of our government, basically.
Yeah, and not only
when
that,
it comes to building, whether it's tanks or amphibious vehicles or freaking helicopters.
Yeah, everything.
There's tens of thousands of guys just like you.
Correct. I am a special, unique snowflake, just like everybody else. No, it's just it's interesting, the fact that it's not only there's not only a private sector and a public aspect of it that both work very well together. We used to make fun of it, but there was one incident where the group that we usually make fun of, like, they really saved our asses. So there was a whole big incident there, but it's not only for shipping, but for planes is another big one.
Yeah.
Obviously you have the FAA, but then you also have, obviously Boeing and Airbus, and then there's then not only are there American ones that you have to review, but in overseas you have what you call Port State Authority. You have to go to theirs, and you have to make sure that your requirements meet their requirements. And sometimes they can be even more stringent. Like, for example, in California can fine you up to 24 miles away if you are putting out black smoke, if your engine is not burning the right fuel. 24 miles is actually further away than the actual borders of the United States.
I was going to say, yeah. How is that possible?
They just said it. They're like, this is our requirement. If you want to come into a California port, you have to adhere to what we say. And California's got San Francisco, it's got San Diego, it's got Long Beach.
So that's got to put a tremendous strain on basically anybody that comes in over there.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not just naval vessels. That's
everything.
Anything.
Yeah.
Shipping, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. And then there was another one. Until recently, the U.S. ships did not go into New Zealand because New Zealand has a ban on, or not necessarily a ban. I don't know the full thing, so I'm sure if there's a New Zealand, law professor out there who's going to hit me for this, I apologize.
It's okay. We don't give a shit.
But
check us, internet.
For a very long time, U.S. Navy ships could not go into New Zealand because New Zealand would not allow any nuclear material into their things, into their borders. So they would want us to declare if we had either nuclear propulsion or nuclear weapons on board, and we refused to do that. We're like, we were not going to tell you the capability of the ship, so we're just not going to go in there.
Well, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they assume the answer is yes.
So omission is a yes in much of the case.
So you just don't get to go.
Yeah. But Australia is right there.
All right, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
Because I think I have to pee again already. And I bet you do.
I'm actually okay.
I know you. Okay, let's take a quick break and check a couple things out, and we'll come back.
Okay.
Hey, listeners, if you're running a small or large business and want to keep your IT running smoothly, you need to check out Computer Quest. They take the hassle out of managing technology, whether it's cybersecurity, asset tracking, or even full-service IT management. They've got you covered. I've been working with Computer Quest, and let me tell you, it has been seamless and smooth end to end. Their expertise and support make a real difference. Plus, they can source hardware from the brands you love at competitive prices, so you're always getting the best value. Don't wait for tech issues to slow you down. Visit cqbits.com. That's cqbits.com to learn how Computer Quest can keep your business moving forward. And make sure to tell them Permanent Mark Podcast sent you.
Fascinating, by the way.
Indeed.
It's good to know what I mean. Like, part of what we're trying to do with our platform here is encourage people through, to make a choice in life, to do something that's good for them, or to talk about things they've had to overcome, or decisions like you made a decision based off of your family's history to go and be of service as well, which is fascinating because a lot of people just give that up. There's not any generational carryover, right?
Yeah.
Like your dad being a firefighter for all those years and all the stuff that I'm sure that he saw that he either shares or doesn't, that's just up to him. But what I'd like to know is a little bit about kind of growing up as a child of a very, your dad, I know for a fact, was a pretty damn good firefighter.
Yeah.
And a pilot on top of that.
Yeah, he was for people listening, my father was a firefighter from 1969, 1970 till 1985. 7 years on Long Island and 8 years in D.C. And then he became a pilot for Pan Am. Pan Am is Pan American Airlines. If anybody's ever watched the movie Catch Me If You Can,
that's him. He's Frank.
Yeah. He's not Frank.
He's not Frank.
Believe it or not, my dad
did he know Frank?
He flew with a guy who knew him.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Indeed.
Yeah. So what was that? So like obviously our friend that was on, he's a firefighter, has been for many years. And I think one of his things as he moves forward is his greatest hope is that he can inspire the next generation. Do you think that seeing your dad do all those things, working for the fire department, both places between New York and DC, which are two different worlds from what I understand, do you think in addition to knowing the lineage of your grandfather and that, did that push you into going into like public service?
100%. Completely agree. Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And my mother is also a nurse practitioner.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of, I mean, they met when he brought a patient into the to the ER that she was the head of. So,
Yeah.
And so began the worst relationship in human history.
Oh, no,
But
come on.
they got me and my sister out of it, depending on whether or not it's a good thing or not. That's for the future to decide. But to answer your question, yes, completely agree with you that there was. I mean, I think in the broad sense of things, him working in D.C. and working as a firefighter in the nation's capital, I think was a big thing about the. Are you good?
No,
okay.
good, yeah.
The working the Capitol, and he would, he obviously was a big historian, so there was that historical and the firefighting aspect of it, and then him being a pilot. He flew commercial missions for the Air Force in both Gulf War, Afghanistan, and in Iraq. So I think that there was this. I don't want to say this. I need to live up to that, but it made it
Some
something
extra
that was,
pressure, maybe.
I think it was more that it made it tangible. Like I think so many times I feel like
Look at this schmuck. I can do that.
Yeah.
You're not a schmuck.
Yeah.
You're just,
Yeah, no, but it's like this is something that is actually can be done. This isn't just something that's on the news or something
In a
that is.
movie.
Yeah, it is like he goes.
Yeah.
It was funny. It was when we were going back to the academy. Like we talked about Sea Year. They were for months. I was like, Sea Year can't be a real thing, really, is it?
Yeah.
And then I got on the ship. I'm like, oh wow, this is an actual thing that we do. But it's funny the fact that my father, he would always he spent 2 weeks away and then 2 weeks home, and he would always talk about like where he was in Hong Kong or Africa or the Middle East or what have you.
When he was flying.
Yeah, and there was like, I think that was the best way of kind of thing. And then it was when he would tell me the stories and the things that he would see. I'm like, I kind of want to do that. I want to explore. I want to find my own little niche and my own little way of contributing. And he would always talk the proudest things he would always talk about. He's like, I flew into Afghanistan last week, and I brought guys home, and this is an old story now. Now the word Blackwater is a known household name. The contractors from Iraq, the very first time that they got ambushed in Baghdad, there's this story of the contractors getting unfortunately very killed, and then their bodies being desecrated. He flew them home, and that was one.
Wow.
Yeah, he was like, I flew those. You watch the news. I flew those contractors home, and he was so proud of that. He's like, he got those boys home.
And as a civilian too.
Yeah.
Yeah, working for a private industry, obviously.
Mm-hmm. So I think there was an allure to the adventure kind of thing. We'd watch old movies, and we'd see like that's where my grandfather fought, and this is where my father flew, and I'm like, what? I kind of want to do that too. I know that there's a family tradition and stuff, but I felt it was more like it made sense. It was like, this seems like something that I can do and that I'd be good at.
Wow. I mean, yeah, and knowing your dad in the way that obviously we've known him for several years now, it totally tracks with his personality.
Yeah.
He loves to talk about anything, honestly. But I can see that, growing up there, and I know you spent a lot of time, with your mother, and then also partially with your father and stuff like that. I can see how, having him come back and say these are the great things, and how it would make an impression on you. The camera just went off again. How that could make an impression on you as a young person to kind of be active as you became even an younger person.
Now, I think
youngish, old,
adolescent, young person. I don't know. I think one of the other things is it was odd in the fact that people talk about what's safe. I mean, people would always talk about going to sea as a cadet. Like my first time on a ship, I was 19 years old, and this ship at one point sailed through pirate-infested waters, and like we were going to Africa to deliver ships and deliver equipment and whatnot to a base that was there. And I told the story, and then my mother told the story to her friends, and they're like, "Aren't you worried? Wasn't Adam scared?" And at no point was I ever scared. I was just kind of like, "Oh, this is just normal." Like the unsafetiness, the lack of safety that I felt was normal. Like my father talking about flying into Iraq and Afghanistan, and my mother working in the ER in DC and stuff.
Like you're jaded to it.
It just felt like that was just another aspect of life that everyone just kind of had to deal with.
Yeah. So he normalized it for you. It became part of what you should expect if you decide to do something even remotely close to what he did.
Yeah.
which is crazy. So, did you talked about your grandfather going to Normandy? Did you ever get to meet him?
My grandfather?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
he was.
you heard these stories firsthand.
Oh
too,
yeah.
then.
Actually, I had a really special encounter. It was the summer before he got sick. It was the summer between my sophomore and junior year of high school. And my so me playing football, in college and in high school, that was kind of like something that that was the one thing I felt like I had to do because my grandfather was a football star, and when he was in high school, my father was a big football star in high school, and I felt that I had to, that was the one thing where I felt like I had to do. But I was never pressured into it. It was just something that was like, I'm doing this.
Assumed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, where I'm going into my first year of varsity football, and I've been training and lifting and everything the whole time. My grandfather got to see me play the year before, and I was really excited to like have him come down and see me, play for varsity and meet a really good team.
This is in Baltimore.
This is just outside of Baltimore, a place
Yeah.
called Laurel, and
I gotta imagine it's tough schools, right?
There were some really good schools. I played against two guys who ended up in the NFL. Aaron Mabin and Zach Brown, both guys I played with, played against, I should say. Both of them ended up in the NFL. One guy ended up in the in arena football that I know of. Let's see, were there any other guys who played D1 that I knew of besides those guys?
Which really just goes to prove how few kids, how such a slim margin of children, if you're out there and you have kids that play sports, chances are they're not going to go to the NFL.
No, but that's not to say that don't do sports as a young person.
You do sports because you should go to college or wherever you're going to do.
Mhm.
That's a good way, a good path to that. But
yeah, so the summer between sophomore and junior year, I went down to stay with him in Florida. And actually, so I'll end on I'll tell you a funny thing to end it with, but it ended up being the last year that he was alive. He ended up dying a few months later. But I was down there, and I got to interview him about his entire war experience from the day he was drafted
awesome. All
all the way through to like VE day. Well, he got home on VJ day, so it was a really cool experience. And he talked to me about the things that are the happenstance items that we all know about that end up being like the random things on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:00 that end up affecting your life hugely. Like the reason why my grandfather ended up in the Army Corps of Engineers is because he knew how to drive a truck, which was a very rare thing at the time. Because his family had a bunch of dry cleaning business, and he used to do the deliveries.
Oh shit!
He ended up landing at Normandy because they needed a radio operator, and he was the lowest ranking radio operator in the unit. And he just the shit rolls downhill, and he ended up landing at Normandy because of that reason. Like he was a wrestler in high school in addition to playing football, and one of his closest friends during the war was a guy. I don't even know his name now, but his nickname that my grandfather always called him was the Russian. They got into a fight, and my grandfather beat him, and like that just ended up having to be like one of his closest buddies. But it was like one of those just all the things that we heard about are the things that made the biggest impacts were just these random things that ended up happening.
Well, I think that's typically, I don't know, in my experience, that's life.
Oh yeah,
that's the stuff in between. That's what's that? People always say it's about the journey or whatever it is. It's not about life is what happens when you get too busy.
Making other plans.
Right, other plans, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's. People that I've talked to throughout my professional career and certainly with our relationships too, you never know when one thing is going to change the entire course of your life.
Yeah.
Whether that's for me it was an accident, or whether it's for Mark when he had he was mugged basically at his gas station, which you didn't listen to the podcast last week. It's fine, the story's in there. We're not going to tell it again.
Okay. For those people listening, episode 2?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Mark gets mugged. We should just title it that. No? Okay. So many times, so many times that happens, you hear it over and over again because you're going about your day, you're going about your life, you're going about whatever you've set your career goal to be, which most of us have, and then something out of the blue comes and boom, changes your life, whether it's because you knew how to drive a truck and there's only a handful of people in the country that could successfully do that without having to think about it, to being the lowest ranking guy. And that story is probably true of so many people that were landing that day.
Absolutely.
And to be a survivor of the First World War to begin with, and then to wind up in the second one, you know, and to be of Jewish heritage.
Well,
you know,
Grandpa Abe is my grandfather. He was in World War II.
Got
His father was Grandpa Nick. He was drafted into World War One. He did not fight in World War One on either side, actually, although he was drafted for both sides. But yes.
yes,
Yeah.
Go figure.
these all
Yeah, right.
these are all like. I mean,
That's another one of them. The two things there.
what's that?
The happenstance thing. Just a war breaks out, and then you're drafted twice to fight on opposite
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah, that yeah. So you just never know, because you know the universe has got plans for you, bud.
Yeah.
You know, you're a passenger, I think, sometimes.
And that is actually kind of brings into what I was going to say when I asked if I could answer the question.
Yes.
So the months after I was not selected by the Marine Corps to go to OCS, I was really frustrated. Like, I was pissed. I'm like, screw you guys. I went to the Merchant Marine Academy. Like, you guys don't want me. Who are you going to pick over me? I was
Right.
I was
A little bitter.
I was a 22-year-old shithead. So I'm a 35-year-old shithead now. So I haven't
Yeah.
really matured a whole lot. But the and I was really grumpy about that. But I ended up, obviously in the Merchant Marine, and I worked really hard, and I did a lot of work for it. And now, after all of that time, getting licensing and taking, courses and, going to graduate school and getting my professional engineer license, all the credentials that I have, I'm now able to help the Marine Corps more in my current position after all of that
And you would have been.
than I would have been as an actual officer. And that I had that epiphany a few months ago, actually, like probably 2 months ago after something that we did.
You're like, I'm doing shit that I never even thought I'd be doing.
Yeah, and I read Stoicism as it's a philosophy that's not being like stoic as in lacking of emotion. It's Stoicism as in trying to be able to guide yourself through the tumultuities of life. And one of the things that they always talk about, and I really didn't get that, after a year and a half of doing it until that moment, is you are exactly where you are supposed to be right now. Right in this exact moment is exactly where you are supposed to be in life. And I thought, and that has been a very calming thing in the last few months. And I mean, really, after I realized, I'm like, okay, wow, I'm here for a reason, and that reason will, manifest itself in its own due time.
You just stop fighting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep taking care of yourself, keep being a good person, keep doing the things that got you to where you are now.
Yeah.
Or improve upon them. I don't know, depending on where you are now.
No, absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
what we're hoping to do, obviously, with the podcast and everything that's going to surround it, is to get these messages of triumph and tragedy and hope to other people, because man, it's a crazy world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad things happening out there to good people, and a lot of
And
bad
you hear
people.
more about the bad things than you ever hear about the good.
Yeah.
Well, that's just
That's just the nature.
the nature of the beast, like you said. I mean, I think we're so used to it, and we talked about this last week, is I think they use that as a divisional message for people, and I think it try to keeps, instead
Without a
of
doubt.
promoting unity, everybody, regardless of your political affiliation, there's been none of that.
Yeah.
Because nobody agrees on anything, because it's a death of 1,000 cuts. You don't know what to be mad at anymore. So you just wind up raging at everything that's not in your bubble, and people got to realize that what you do with your life has impacts on other people, you know. So talk to me about your first voyage, your first long voyage out of the Naval Academy. Like, where did you go first?
Merchant Marine Academy.
Merchant Marine. Sorry. Sorry.
That's the Naval Academy guys are going to hate that more than the Merchant Marine Academy guys do. They don't. We call ourselves the redheaded bastard stepchild of the service academies.
We talked about this before. My father was my grandfather was a Merchant Marine. I told you that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, they have a Merchant Marine ship in the Port of Tampa.
Yeah, the USAT Liberty, right?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's
The
fascinating.
my union, my shipping union, is the one who handles the maintenance on it every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm the so you're talking about like when I was in school, like when my first C year, like with the
Yeah, so you said you had to you broke up in 2 sections, right?
correct. So first C year for me, it was between November of 2008 and March of 2009.
And
actually, I got off my very first ship as a cadet on St. Patrick's Day
Okay.
of 2009.
From where? Where did you leave from?
So we went to, actually, this ties into the whole tattoo story. I got my very first tattoo on a beach in Santos, Brazil, which people listening, don't do that. That is not a good idea. So we got on the ship, and it was the MV Ocean Atlas, which is still around. I ran into it when I was on a ship in Port Moresby. It was called it bounces back and forth between being called the Ocean Atlas and the Industrial Challenger. The Industrial Challenger is its foreign flag name. I boarded the ship in Houston on November 10th of 2008, and I was an engine cadet, and it was me. It was Colton Frank, who is now a lieutenant commander in the Coast Guard and is a pilot for them, and a guy named Kamalanathan Balakrishnan, who we called Bala or Nate. But he was a foreign exchange student from Malaysia. He was the very first academy graduate from Malaysia, and he was a really smart dude. And he could sleep like a log. Holy crap. But we went, so the very first time we were on board, we left maybe about 4 or 5 days after we got there. Maybe the first time I was away was November 15th. And then we went down to Itaqui, Brazil. We were carrying a bunch of rail ties for the now Trans-Brazilian Railroad, which I believe is, but I think it's fully complete now. And then we went to Santos, then Rio de Janeiro, then down to Buenos Aires. We went to Montevideo for a brief time. We went back up to Texas, and then we bounced around the Caribbean for a while. We went over to Spain. We went down to Africa. That was when we were doing the pirate run. And then we went over to Brazil, and then went back up to Texas. And that was 128 days.
Wow.
And that was, and I think the most, besides there were a couple of very memorable moments there. We ruptured a fuel line and lost. In the same day, 2 separate incidents. We lost steering and ruptured a fuel line coming into Brazil, and we were supposed to do the crossing the equator ceremony where you become a trusty shellback, and we were getting sprayed with fuel, and we're trying to bounce back and forth between handling emergency steering and patching up this fuel line. And
That's
then we're
a hell of an experience.
It was a hell of a time. I remember we had this one guy, Roger. He was the electrician on board, and he was older. And he had the voice after smoking a pack a day since he was 11. He was a phenomenal electrician though, because I think that he was the guy who tied the key to Ben Franklin's kite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had been doing the thing for a while. Roger, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
He might be.
I have no. He taught me a ton, an absolute metric ton of electrical stuff. And at one point, when older ships, they burn what we call heavy fuel, which you've seen it before. It's what they tar roads with. Whatever they don't sell to the people, the cities that tar roads, they sell to ships to burn, and you have to heat it up to about 140 degrees. Celsius, I believe. No, yeah, Celsius. To be able to burn in its liquid state, and this stuff is spraying everywhere, and it's covering the floor. And we're trying to lift holes in the deck plating to find the shutoff valve, and we can't find it. And one of them accidentally got left open, and Roger's leg goes straight through it, and he almost disappeared up to his hip in this leg. In this thing. Now we're trying to pull him out, and it was hysterical. But we ended up not having to do the crossing the line ceremony. And then, but then the next day I got ashore in Brazil. That was my very first time in a foreign country. Yeah.
And then tattooed.
A few weeks later, I was in Brazil. I'm like, no, screw this. I'm going to get a tattoo. And my buddy's like, that is the stupidest thing.
What'd you get?
I got the Star of David on my arm.
So that was done on a beach?
That was on
Brazil.
It was beach adjacent. It was
okay. A walk. A boardwalk, maybe.
Kind of you ever see those little setup temporary shacks that are there. That
sounds sanitary.
They very. Don't ever do that, kids.
So you're done. You come back.
I come back, and we at the academy we call anybody who hasn't been to sea yet. We call them a super plebe, and because your plebe is your first year. A lot of people don't go to sea immediately after their first year. So we come back, and you definitely view school different. You're like, I know, I've been on a ship. I know what I don't need to know, or you think you do, because again, you're 19.
Right, you don't know. Yeah.
You
don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Truth of life.
Yeah. And then there's a period of time where you're freaking out because while you're on board, you have to do sea projects. And sea projects are the worst thing known to man. They are basically your first year there, you take 8 credits of work at sea, and then you do 16 credits your second time around. But they are just, you have to draw every system out. You have to write detailed, and you wait and you freak out for about 2 months to maybe before you find out if you passed or failed. And yeah.
Wow. So that was your kind of your first half of it, and then you wind up traveling several more times around the world, different places, right? What's your favorite place you've ever been?
Ooh, that's a good question. All right, so I really enjoyed Papua New Guinea. That was a special thing that I did, and it's one of those places where the it's just so different and so fun, and people are kind. And it's just such a different experience that it kind of automatically jumps to the top. I had a really cool time in Argentina when I was there, one of my first times around. We were just able, the cab driver we had, his name was Carlos. He was nuts. He would take us into all the different cool parts of town. We went to this restaurant that he knew the owner of, and we just had this awesome time. We bought him dinner with us. It was really cool. I also, I got really comfortable in the Philippines. Obviously, my father's wife, my stepmother essentially, is in the Philippines. And I got to meet them for the first time when I was on a ship over there. Yeah. And it was, a ton of fun. And we also got to, it was cool in the fact that we got to do, one, I got to see them, and I got to take them out on Christmas, which was, obviously a big deal for them. But then we also got to take a tour of Bataan and Corregidor, the World War II battle sites. Mm-hmm. And we had a special tour guide who, we were able to walk through the buildings and, take a boat ride out to the, the interesting areas. And that was a lot of fun.
What was that like to see those, historic sites?
It's weird.
Is it? Yeah.
Because, so much of we look at World War II history and we remember, Normandy, storming the beaches, punching Nazis in the face. We know Iwo Jima, the flag raising. We know, Leyte Gulf, the biggest naval battle in history and stuff. It's weird to walk through a defeat.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
it was and they have the name, the guys who fought there. They carved their names on the walls of the building. That was gonna be that. I was here. I fought.
I mattered.
Yeah, I mattered. I was exactly. I mattered, and that was weird. And then you learn about the defeat, and you also this is a really weird thing. The gun emplacements all have names. They're all named after people who fought in the Spanish-American War and the Filipino and what we call they call the Filipino insurrection, because this was built between the Filipino insurrection and World War II. So you hear the story about First Lieutenant Smith, just some random person, and you find out that he did something, and then his legacy is this gun battery that held out against the Japanese until the Japanese were right there. So it was weird. You had a story within a story.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you've definitely lived, an interesting kind of. I mean, I don't want to say life because it's not over, but you've had a very unique human experience.
Yeah.
And I know you love rugby. Obviously, it's like your jam, right?
I got the messed up knees to prove it.
Yeah. So. I know that you thought football, man, this is not, I don't want to get hit with pads on. I'm going to go play rugby. Explain that.
So it was less of, I want to get hit without pads on, and more that I wanted to still do something that I felt was in my niche.
Yeah.
So football in college, when you were talking about there's something that people who are successful in sports there's something there. I thought I had it. I did not. I was playing D3 football, and I also had this really weird situation where I was going through my final growth spurt my freshman year of college, and I could never be big and fast enough at the same time. I could run a 4.7 40, but I'd be 160 pounds. I'd get to 215, and I'd be running a 5.1 or 5.0. And I mean, I was going against guys who, would rush for 1,000 yards in a season against, some of the top teams in D3 football. I was not seeing the field. And I was taking 19 credit hours in trimesters, because that's how they break up the school year at the academy in trimesters. And I was doing 21 hours of football a week. And I'm just
too much.
I'm just this is, I do not have it in me to do this. And I decided okay, well, let me try something else. And my friend quit football and played rugby. And he was this is so much more better. This is so much better. We're still, you're
competitive,
active,
fun.
Exactly. Yeah. And you kind of scratch that itch and, still have a fun time.
Yeah.
And I jumped into it, and I took to it like a fish to water. I really like the community aspect of it. Like the people who play rugby are very interesting.
Well, the teams aren't as big either, correct?
No, well, on the field they're bigger. Like on the field there's 15 people, but
Yeah.
correct. The football team at the academy, I think, had something like 60 or 70 people on it. Like, so I wouldn't. There were some times where I wouldn't even travel with the team because I did not make the travel side. The final straw, like when I realized that I wasn't going to be, really seeing the field, was in the springtime of my plebe year when we were doing spring ball, and it was just freshmen and sophomores, which we call third classmen, so plebes and third classmen, and I'm still not even on like the second punt team or the second kickoff team or things along those lines.
Yeah.
And I also hosted a fullback. I played fullback in the college for for a recruiting visit, and at the same time another fullback was coming in, and he ended up being he's now one of a good friend of mine, but he was the highest starred running back who did not go D1 football. So he ended up playing and was obviously like a beast.
Yeah, because he's that close.
Yeah, and you feeling okay? You good? You want a Fresca?
Lord.
You like a back rub or something?
Trying not to blow up the microphone.
I know, right?
But yeah, so rugby just kind of became my thing, and I think
And you continue to play.
Oh,
Yeah,
I still do. I'm not playing right now. I'm gonna when I get back from this trip, I'm gonna go back to playing a little bit. I definitely have to take a step back. Life is happening, and the team I play on is a bit further away from me. And I think when I was playing you good?
Just give him a second.
All right,
Sorry,
all right.
guys.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic.
Good. You need to take a break? You good?
You
gonna take a break?
Okay.
You gotta get up? Mark's gonna leave us.
All right.
Oh, Jesus.
This is okay.
Well, I think it's just me and you now because
All right.
he's gonna get up.
Hang on, let me move.
Do we
out
need
of
to
the
get
way
up? No? Are you gonna step over?
All right, here we go.
Yeah, look at that.
And he sticks the
Here he
landing.
goes. Second time in a row in 2 weeks this has happened. He's gonna get that checked out.
That's okay.
He did.
Anyway.
But wow, he's like 30 feet away, and I can still hear it.
No, we've got to. But anyways, wrapping up the rugby thing, going away to see and coming back, it was really easy to be able to have that. Like, it's hard to have a social life when you go to sea as often as I did. I mean, I spent 7 of every 12 months away between 19 to 29. So having the ability to kind of like walk into a community that, hey, let me, run around, hit something, play some rugby. It was very convenient. Actually, to be honest with you, the only thing that's been more convenient walking out of and into is being friends with you guys.
Oh, thank you.
I love hanging out with you guys.
Yeah. So if you could go back to your 19-year-old self, right? Just getting out of you've in your mind, you've got this story of heroism from your dad, from all the stuff he did, knowing about your grandparents and their struggles in a lot of different ways. And in your mind, you're going, man, I'm going to go do this. This is my goal right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not having the, luxury of hindsight because you don't have it at 19. You don't even think about this is just the way it's going to be.
The fact that 19-year-old boys can learn anything is
amazing.
nothing short of a miracle.
It's crazy. Yeah. What is the best advice you could give to your 19-year-old self right now, knowing what you know at 35 years old?
Does it have to come out at a way that I know that I would listen to, or does it just have to be the best advice?
It's the best advice based off if you went back in time and said, if you Marty McFly'd it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said, these are the things that I've learned so far. Take with what you will and do something with it. Maybe it wouldn't change the outcome of where you're at now, but just some sage advice you would share with yourself, because that advice, even though it's now pushing this, 15-year-old advice that you'd be giving, in time, you've traveled through time now.
Yeah.
You're going back the age you are now, talking to your 19-year-old self. If you had one thing you could tell them, what would it be?
You don't know as much as you think you do, but you know more than what they tell you you know.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the best thing I could. The other one that kind of balances out with that is calm down. I was really angry at 19. I was an angry little bastard.
Why?
Long story. We're not going to go into that. My family and I were not getting along at 19. I had no going away. Everyone was like, "Didn't you get homesick?" I'm like, "No, I wanted to be left out there." I was the only person who went right from from going onto a ship back to the academy because I showed up late. They left me on the ship longer than we were supposed to be. Like school started 2 weeks before I got there. I was like late coming back because we were going to. Our ship was going to Brazil first, and we got off in Brazil. We were picking up a load of windmill blades. So those big giant windmill blades that you see, those are made out of balsa wood, and a lot of them are made and then coated in Brazil. Then we were going to go, and the school would not fly us back from Brazil. It was going to cost too much money, especially since we were going to Texas. We were going to go to. Well, we first were going to go to Texas, and then we ended up going to New York. And they're like, all right, we'll just fly you back from Texas. It's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper. Well, we end up going into, we end up being diverted from Texas up to Albany. And we actually sit in Houston for a short time beforehand. We had to, we had to sit out. We were going to go to Houston, and the storm came in, and we couldn't go into port. And that's when the cargo was redirected to Albany. And we ended up coming up the Hudson River. It was actually really cool because we went, it was the same trip that my family would have taken, coming not from Brazil, obviously, but you come to New York, you pass the Statue of Liberty, you pass Ellis Island, you go under the GW Bridge, and you go up the Hudson River. You see West Point and all the other cool things that are going. Maybe not up to West Point, maybe up to there. And then we got off in Albany, but we got late, and I went right back to the academy. And I brought my girlfriend came up a few weeks after that. I don't think I came home. Like I left in November. I don't think I actually got back home until, honest to God, it was when school let out, and I was only home for a short time because I got drafted to be a drill instructor for the incoming class. So I didn't. Yeah. So I was angry as a 19-year-old, and I did not want to go home. I didn't want to see anything. I did not talk to anybody except my friend Jeremy, my friend at the academy, and my girlfriend. Like I did not want to talk to anybody. I was an angsty guy, and I just wasn't getting along with people at home. So I didn't go home, and I think that there were things that happened afterwards where I realized that part of what fed this is the fact that I was absent for as long as I was, and I think that if I had a bit of a cooler mindset, I would have been able to, bridge those gaps and maybe solve some of those issues. Then the other one was, you don't know as much as you think you do because obviously every 19-year-old boy knows everything in the world.
Sure.
But you know more than what they're telling you that you know.
Right.
That was
so trust yourself.
Yeah, trust yourself. With a certain level of humbleness.
Yeah.
Like trust with humility.
Don't fly too close to the sun.
Yeah, but don't be afraid to leave the ground.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that if you had that advice then, first of all, would you have listened to it? And second of all, do you think it would have changed that gap in your home life?
I don't know that I would have listened to it.
And then second part of that, do you think that changed who you are now?
100% to change who I am now.
Okay.
100%.
So you don't think you would have heard it?
Well, the thing is, nobody ever said it to me. Nobody ever really, with the things that happened, everyone was just like, we're going to avoid this topic. We're just not going to talk about it. So nobody ever actually told me to calm down. I also do a pretty good job of hiding my emotions.
If you don't want to go into detail of it, because I do legitimately, there's somebody out there who's done it.
Yeah. No, there was a significant amount of drama in my family. And to a certain, I'm not gonna say that I was a cause of it, but I'm not blaming myself. But a certain reason for this is because I was gone at the academy. The drama would kind of come out when I was home because everyone would come and see me, and everyone would get together, and that's when all the open wounds would kind of get hit. And the
drama was between your parents,
my father and my sister. Yeah. And it was an unpleasant experience, and it was a problem that got bigger.
So do you feel like, because, okay, do you feel like you were the glue?
No, I don't think I was the glue for that situation. For anything along those lines. I think.
But was a lot of pressure on you to keep them from going at each other then? Because it sounds to me, because I don't know what happened, that when you left, there was no barrier.
No, I don't think. No, not necessarily. I don't think there was any. I think it was more along the lines of is like I came back in, and people to be fair, I wanted to see everybody too, and that was the only. I think the fact that I was there is the only reason why they would be interacting with one another. If that makes any sense.
Well, yeah. I mean,
so I think it just happened to be like. They just happened to be me being there. Just happened to bring everybody together, which is what caused the fighting.
the fact that you were there caused the fighting?
The fact that I was there is what brought them into like the same space together. Otherwise, I don't think anybody would be around one another.
So avoidance was the answer before you got there.
Yeah, and I think me being back, everyone's like, "Oh, Adam's back." He hasn't been around in months and whatever, and like let's go see him. And but then,
so it's just your sister and your dad just don't get along.
No, absolutely not.
Is there anything you wish you could do to change that?
No.
Why?
I really have no. Maybe at the time, but at this point, no. As it is what it is. Like it's drama. It's I think it I don't know. It's more of you got me in a hard thing to articulate here. No, to answer your question, no, I don't want to. I don't think I would want to do it. I don't think I could have done anything to make it better. I don't think I would want to do anything now to make it better. I think it's more along the lines of if it were going to happen, it would have happened already, and I'm not really interested in expending an absurd amount of energy to try and solve something for two adults who could do it
neither
themselves.
one of them want it.
No. Absolutely not.
It's just not something on the radar for them.
And it's fine. I mean, like everyone exists fine and happily in their whole thing. But yes, going back to the whole thing of if at 19, if somebody had told me to calm down, I do sometimes wonder if I had. Actually, better yet, I think I would have listened if the right person had said it to me.
And who would that have been?
Well, my grandfather I would have listened to him.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
He had been dead for 5 years at that point. That's a good question. I really don't know. And because at that point I think maybe honestly God, now that I think about it, the first time Adam's ever thought about this, maybe the trust with humility is tied into the whole calming down thing. Maybe I was being a blustering fool because I wanted to try and like have that confidence in myself that I didn't have in anybody else at the time to like listen to.
Right. You felt alone almost.
I don't want to say that because I really do remember, like when I think back to that time, I think back to like really good experiences with people who were close to me, my buddies at the academy, the guys I played rugby with. Yeah. I think maybe lost is a certain part of it.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Because I think that's a shared experience.
Absolutely.
I think that there are so many people out there that feel that way regardless of if you're 19 or if you're 25. Mm-hmm. Nobody has their shit figured out. Generally speaking, at that age, even if you're doing something that you think is going to be your thing, again, life gets in the way of that. Life gets in the way, and I think at those crucial age, I think for men is what happens between the ages of 17 and about 25.
Oh, 100%.
There are things there are real life consequences for your actions then, and there's also real life opportunity to come over trauma because the majority of kids, young adults, haven't really experienced major trauma unless they're super unfortunate in their life, right? So I think that just putting the message out that like calm down, everything's going to be fine, while knowing that you can't control what's about to happen. Yeah. You can't control it, right? And if that scenario is fighting between siblings and parents, which as a girl dad, my biggest fear is that I do something where my daughter would never want to associate with me. I don't, that for me, that's just not something that I ever see happening on my radar, but you never can guarantee it. Right. Yeah. But you have to now, maybe being a little older, having that in your mind, you have to do the best you can to avoid putting yourself in a situation like that. And same with the boys, you don't want to ever strain your relationship. I think so many of us have that. I lost my dad, 17 years ago, which I said last week, I think is way too early to lose a parent, even in their 20s. Yeah. You don't have that support or that sage advice to get you. So, you just kind of wind up which is, I think, to me, it sounds like what happened to you when you were 19, leaving the house and then coming back in and having, instead of being the glue, being the thing that causes the chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least being, that's a good point. And
Instead of being a bridge, using the skills that you've just learned, like you said, they teach you how to problem solve. They teach you how to lead. They teach you how to help people. Mm-hmm. And you're in this situation where you can't do any of those things, which only probably increases your anger of the situation, which is terrible. And you have a great relationship with your dad. I know that now. You guys, even though you argue about things, it's what. Hey, Mark's back. Hey, buddy.
Hi there.
Yeah, go front first.
You definitely bring up a good point about especially for young men. I mean, I'm sure this is the case for. I'm not trying to be gender exclusatory or anything.
You should. That's what we do here.
I'm not to the best of my knowledge, I am not and have never been a woman. So I can't say that young women really need this. I'm sure they do in a different way than I'm able to understand. But I do know as a young man, there have looking back on it now and seeing my friends who, as I said, we were kind of lost. And seeing my friends who have been much more lost than I have and got off the path, there is a definite need for and the hysterical definite need for young men to have guidance of some kind. Mm-hmm. And the worst thing is the fact that if there is one entity that does not want to take instructions, it is a man between the ages of 17 and 25.
Absolutely.
Do not want to do that. But we need that more than anything. We really need, we need to have someone tell us, hey, just don't have that last drink. Or,
right.
Hey, she doesn't really like you right now. Don't send that message. Or, let's just, play video games. Or let's go outside. Things that we have a hard time. Things that, like I said, every young boy, every young man knows everything that's going on and everything that ever will happen. But, we do need that gentle shove.
It's even worse now with the availability of technology and I don't think that young people in general genuinely spend enough time with themselves.
That's a good point.
They're always inundated with text messages or social media or video games or friends, which is, friends are really powerful and super important to have, especially as you get older. But I think there's not enough of that time to sit and reflect on, and I think it was probably true of our generation too in some way, because even though we were more tactile in it because we were out doing things, we were never alone. But there was always that opportunity to be with yourself, with your thoughts sometimes.
Yeah.
And you don't ever take advantage of that because you never think about it. And now for us being in our 40s with children, I don't have any time to myself. It's either working on this or working on work or working on relationships with my wife and my children and my mother and everybody else. If my advice would be to take time to yourself, make sure you're okay, because if you're not okay, the people around you can't be okay either.
No.
Which,
that's great advice.
You have to be okay.
Angry 19-year-old Mike moving away.
Yeah. I left. You remember I left. I left the state.
Yeah, you went to Alabama.
Yeah, I'm going to get the fuck out of here. I'm done with this place. I mean, not identical, but similar. Mm-hmm. We're all walking the same path. We've all had shared experiences. Just maybe the walk has been just a little bit different in different shoes, right? But it's all the same. I think,
of course,
there's this transformative time in our lives as young men, and I'm sure young ladies too. Again, I can't speak to it because I don't ever believe I've also ever been a woman, but you never know, I guess. And there's this inability now, I think, to realize that, because there is so much put on kids that you have to do this, you have to do that. Okay, if you're going to go play football, you better be in D1. Okay, well, you don't want to do that anymore. You failed at it. And I just happen to believe that failure, and even this is your case too, is the greatest teacher we have.
100%.
You didn't ever imagine you were going to wind up right here. But the things that you've done, because I know you, things that you've done in your life have made impacts on other people because of the choices that you've made. But you had to go through that stuff when you were 19, 20 years old. You had to find your, way through it to get where you're at now. We talked again last week. We'll rehash it very shortly. Some of the stuff that happened to Mark, he has his experience in life has been different than mine, but we're here now. Mine has been a lot different.
Nonetheless, they're letdowns.
Absolutely, between
Yeah.
divorce and he got held up when he worked at Hess, which you can go back and watch episode 2. And there's a nice little, probably 20-minute conversation on
Yeah.
it. But, you know, when he getting divorced was really a big impact on him, and it changed his life.
Yeah.
And we have this together, have this history that we can look back on. And I think we use each other a lot when it comes to handling situations, because we have, as close as you can be as friends, we have been. So there's a big, we have a shared, and of course, you know, Miranda included, because we've been together 23 years. Married 19 years tomorrow, by the way. It's our anniversary.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. You know, it's good to have that support system, which you've had between rugby and being in the service and things like that, to just fall back on. And remember that, like, if you're out there listening, remember that you are who you surround yourself with. The circle of friends that you keep closest to you, and you can even make friends when you're older.
Oh, 100%.
You know, friends that are family, even when you're as you get towards, you know, your middle of your life. Keep in mind that you're almost always going to turn out the way that the people around you do.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact. So, what I wanted to talk about, this is a very interesting thing that I know about you. So, not that long ago, you were out for an evening,
Yes.
right? So, what's the best way to start this story?
It is actually, it combines with the theme. We were in Savannah, Georgia, at the St. Patrick's Day celebration,
Mhm.
which is, I believe, the second or the third largest St. Patrick's Day celebration in the U.S. I think either Chicago or New York is number one.
New York's number one.
New York's number one. And I
I
think
would say Chicago's too.
I think Chicago and Savannah actually seesaw between.
We have
the
an
two.
internet fact checker here.
Okay.
You want to look it up?
What is the second? Where
Producer
does,
Miranda.
Where does
Producer.
Savannah, Georgia rate in its same? I do know this. I do know that there's two areas of Savannah. There's a downtown area, and then there's an island off the other end, which has a very kind of short, funny name that I can't remember the name of it, like Edie Island or something like that. And
You say ED?
I think like not E. I think it's ID. Fuck off. And they have
The SS Cialis? Do they sail out to?
That's the Latafel. Hey, we're looking for sponsors. They have St. Practice Day weekend, which is like another
The weekend before?
Weekend before. So
Okay. It's a warm-up.
They seesaw, and then one of the staples of the St. Patrick's Day celebration in Savannah, Georgia, in addition to a parade and a few other fun celebrations, is the St. Patrick's Day rugby tournament in Savannah, Georgia,
Which you participated in.
which I was participating in. I was there with my team. We were Vegeta's Revenge. We were playing as a Dragon Ball Z themed team. We were just doing a tour, but it was all my buddies from the men's club I play for.
Taking a break for a sip.
I need to get a little bit. I mean, to talk about this story.
It's a great story.
It is a very tumultuous story.
So, it's not. It's not. So, I want to start by saying, if you can be of service, do it.
Yes,
If you can help somebody, you should do it.
correct.
Not for your own gain, because you're not selfish about it, because it's the right thing to do.
Correct.
If you have an opportunity to help another person, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple.
Yeah, that's 100% right. So everyone, this is going to get a bit graphic, and I apologize for this. On March 12th in 2023,
You guys are out.
We are out. We're out in downtown Savannah. We've won all of our games so far. We're having a great time. We're having a really good time, and it's fun. And we're drinking.
You're
and we're
being
singing
rowdy.
songs. We're being rowdy. We're being rugby players in Savannah, Georgia. I mean, what else are we supposed to do? And it's late at night. You know, we've been up all day playing rugby. We're all beat up, scarred up, and everything. I got cuts all over myself, which will play into the story later on. So late at night, if you've been to Savannah, Georgia, you know that in one of the areas there's a hot dog stand that's open late. Yeah, they're good hot dogs. I mean, these are
Anything's
Dirty dog.
Anything is good.
when you're 3:00 in the morning and you've been
Right,
drinking
like-
all day.
Like outside of that, what was that country club here? Not country, like golf, like a honky tonk. What was
Uh-huh.
that place down in Oldsmar?
The Roundup.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
Where you could get the most disgusting hot dogs, but of course,
Yeah.
It's a sink or swim night. You go out
Absolutely.
there. Can I get 37 hot dogs, please? Okay. Go ahead. That happened once.
I do not. First off, can we do that now? I'd be okay with that.
Hot dogs?
Hell yes.
30 wiener dogs.
Eh,
Okay. Anyway.
as long as they're kosher. By the way, there are 2 Jews here right now, everybody. Both Mark and I are Jews.
Shalom.
Yeah,
The chosen ones.
indeed. St. Patrick eats bagels.
Yeah.
So it's early in the morning. It's March 12th, 2023. So if you have an internet near you, you can Google the event that I'm going to talk about. But there was a shooting in downtown Savannah. This young woman was hanging out with us in line. The line is obviously enormous for a crowded weekend in Savannah at the only hot dog stand that's open. And she was talking with us. I don't really remember about what. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to my friends. And then she goes off to someplace else in line. And all of a sudden, a few minutes later, you hear oh my God, whoa, they're going at it. And this young lady, and what we thought was a boy, it turned out to be a young woman who had short hair and was in a hoodie and baggy pants. They're having a fight. They're having a fight on the street. And as we do, we gather around and people are taking photos. And I hate that. Having somebody who had been punched in the face and punched other people's face in the street, I realize how stupid it actually is. Guys, girls, if you get into a fight in the street, you are not cool. No one is going to look at you and go, oh, wow, that person's so cool. No, they're going to look at you and go, well, that person's a fucking idiot and just ruin their entire night and all their friends' nights. And now they're going to have to talk to the cops and they can't go home and they can't hook up with the one girl who they've been talking to the entire night. Maybe that did not happen to me. I don't know.
It sounds like a personal story.
But anyways,
somewhere.
You are not cool if you get into a street fight. Just anybody listening. But anyways, these
You
two
are cool if you play Street Fighter.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So they're having a fight, and I hate watching that. I'm like, will somebody just break him up? And I turn around. Everybody else has their phone out. A buddy of ours, he does professional filmmaking, and he's been filming us the whole time, so he shows this, And then you hear these 3 loud, claps, and obviously I've heard gunshots before, and I'm like, that didn't sound like gunshots to me. It sounded something different. So I thought somebody had set off fireworks because again, the second that happens, everyone starts running. It's like cockroaches when the lights come on. And I turn around and I'm thinking, well, maybe somebody shot off a gun in the air like they do in movies because they're stupid to break up the fight. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. And I look around and I see a woman who's on the ground. I think she's been knocked out or trampled or what have you or things along those lines. And I can see everyone is running around in every direction. So whatever the danger is, it's right in the center of where they're running from. And I can see there is no danger. I'm like, okay, well, there's no danger. I'm going to go check on this girl, see if, maybe she got knocked to the ground, got knocked her head or whatever in those lines. And I walk over to her and I'm like, miss. And I'm shaking her shoulder and I'm checking her finger, I'm checking her wrist with my fingers for a pulse. I'm like, miss, are you okay? Are you all right? Did you faint? What happened? And I'm checking her wrist for a pulse, and I go and I say out to the ether, I say, can somebody help me? I can't seem to help. I can't seem to find a pulse on her. And this young lady comes running over to me. She goes, I'm a nurse. We have to stop the bleeding. I'm like, bleeding? What the hell are you looking at? The people who are unable to be in my head. This woman is basically lying on the ground, parallel to the sidewalk. I'm on her left side. And the other one woman running up to me is going to be on her right side. The woman is on her back facing up. She has very large braids, which will play into the story. So I lean over to where this young lady is looking for him. I'm not going to give her name. And I see that that blood is coming out through the young lady's head and is pooling up underneath her braids. It turns out that she had been winning the fight, and the young lady underneath her pulled out a gun, put it to the side of her, put it to her right ear, and pulled the trigger. Wow. So the bullet went into her ear, into her right ear, and it came out just below, I guess, the back of her, bottom of her skull on the left side. And I end up looking up at this young woman who came running over to me, saying that she's a nurse, and I go, I need you to tell me what to do. And she goes, we have to put pressure on the wound. And I'm like, cool, can do that. So I find where the blood's coming out, and I'm fishing my way through her braids, and I just kind of put my hand there, and we're putting my hand on her shoulder to kind of keep her down. And she is unconscious at this point. She's unconscious.
She hasn't woken up.
She has not woken up. Everyone's running around. Cops have shown up. the young lady who's with me, we'll just call her Nurse. Nurse is with me, and she is telling and she's giving the issues. Gunshot wound, entrance in the right ear, exit wound just below the bottom of the left skull. I'm like, I got pressure on the wound. Blood is not bleeding right now, but I can feel it pulsating against my hand. So he goes, okay, well, let me see if I can get my hand on the wound. I can take over for you. He wants me away. By the way, he wants all of us away.
The EMTs.
This is a police officer. EMTs have not arrived yet.
Okay.
Police officer's there, and he can't get through her hair. It's being kind of matted now. And I'm like, well, if you can find my fingers, you can walk your hands under my fingers, and you can take over for me. He says, that's a good idea. And he starts doing that. And the second he gets under, like, where my hand meets my palm, fingers meet my palm, like, blood comes shooting up. Like, the second there's not pressure on that wound, it just gushes. And I push my hand on the back of her hand. I push his hand out of the way. And she kind of now is in a semi-state of consciousness. You ever been like at that point and when you're asleep, but you know you're not awake, but you also know that you're not asleep,
right.
but you're aware of things? She became aware of around her and did not like it. Also, at this point, if anybody has never seen a gunshot wound, don't. She had blood coming out of every hole in her head. She had blood coming out of her eyes. She had blood coming out of her nose. She had blood coming out of her mouth. She had blood coming out of her ears. She had blood coming out of a new hole in her head. It was disgusting. And I've never felt fear coming off someone until that moment. Like, she was afraid.
Like, palpable.
And I felt so bad for her. Like, she's kind of like flopping on her side back and forth like somebody who can't get comfortable when they're sleeping. And she's just, and like, now we're holding her down and we're talking to her. We're like, it's okay. Like, you're safe. Like, just stay still. Like, we're here. We're here with you. We're not going to leave you. And she is just so scared. It like makes me uncomfortable to think about it. And then finally, so we're there. I mean, I must be had my hand on this girl's shoulder for like 20 minutes. And again, I am covered in blood.
What is taking so long?
So they can't get to downtown, like
because it's
been cordoned off in certain areas. There's a crowd in other areas. It's also 3:00 in the morning. Odds are there's been other issues going on. So the firefighters show up, and she can't. The firefighters come, and they. I'm asking all the time, do you want me to stay here? Do you want me to move? And they go, do not move. Just keep your hand on her head. Then the EMTs are there, and they're trying to get an IV in her, and they're trying to get a mask on her. And every time they get a mask on her, she flops to one side and pulls the mask off. Every time they get an IV in her, she flops to the other side and pulls the IV out. And the EMT, these are the firefighters that are there now. The firefighters are there, and the only thing that let me know what's going on is I'm looking at the ground, and I'm seeing the color of the lights reflect off the ground. First it's blue lights, and now it's red lights. So I'm like, okay, the firefighters are here. And I thought to myself, if I were that scared as what she was, what would make me feel better? And I thought of when, I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but my father used to narrate movies to me when I would watch them, because it would be the first time I would ever see them. And I love movies when the good guys win. I have Superman tattooed on my arm. I don't like movies and shows about bad people doing bad things and then winning. I want the cavalry to ride in to save the day. I want Superman to fly in to beat the bad guy. I want all of that. And that's how my father and grandfather used to narrate movies to me. So if I had been that scared, what would make me feel better is knowing that the good guys are on their way. So I sat there, and I'm looking down into her, and I'm holding her down. I say into her ear, I'm like, it's okay. The good guys are here. We're going to take care of you. And I said that to her over and over. I'm like, it's okay. But the good guys are here. We're going to take care of you. You're going to be all right. And they're like, we can't get IVs on her. We can't get a mask on her. We can't move her until this. And I said, okay. And at one point we lifted her up, and we checked for another wound. And I said, hey, if we keep her like this, I can sneak in behind her, and I can keep my hand on her and hold her arms, and you guys can get the IV and the mask on her. No one says no. Omission is yes. And I do that. I slide right behind her, and I got her arms. I got my hand on the back of her head. They put an IV on her. They put a mask on her. And the next thing they say is, dude, get out. And I'm like, yep, cool, gone. And it turns out that's the process. They don't want you to get pressure off the wound until they have the oxygen flowing to her and an IV in her and things along those lines. And then I remember me and the nurse lady who was with me, who was a godsend. I mean, talk about an angel on your shoulder. She was everything you wanted her to be in every moment. Go home and go wherever you are and shake the hands of a nurse right now. We end up going to the firefighters, and we are covered in blood.
Yeah.
and they opened up their engine and they like let us wash our hands off in that. And my buddies in the rugby team, they were there, and they're like, I had to, give a statement and everything, and then they stayed with me and they walked me back. And one of my buddies, a guy named Sam, he goes, "Yo, Klein, do you want to get a giant beer and smoke a Black and Mild?" I'm like, yes, I do. And here I am,
4 o'clock in the morning.
Here I am, 4 o'clock in the morning. I look like somebody who just slaughtered a sheep, and I'm walking into a 7-Eleven getting a beer and a Black and Mild.
So the police didn't come to you at all?
They did when we were there.
Yeah.
like
when they're like, all right, get out.
they were like, well, I didn't see what happened. Like, I was
Right.
genuinely not looking at the place, and I could tell them like what I did, like to help her and everything, but I didn't see, I didn't know till later on that the person who we had been talking to had been in the fight, had been that woman.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't recognize her,
yeah.
and I was like, oh wow, that was her. Now, the hindsight, the clarity from what happened previously, and then the guy, the detective over there, I won't give his name out, but he ended up calling me the next day. It was the next day because she regained consciousness. She remembered us. She remembered guys.
Wow.
She remembered the guys. She's like, there were these guys in jerseys, and they were like they were near me, and they're like,
So obviously she made it.
oh yeah, she is alive.
Yeah.
At the best of my, best of my knowledge, she is alive.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, don't be afraid to help people out.
Well, and just like we said a minute ago,
Mhm.
it's you find yourself in the right place when you're supposed to be in that place. Without you, she probably would have died.
Yeah, and there's another good story about somebody else. Sometimes good deeds feed other good deeds. So again, my mother was an ER nurse in D.C. My mother was an ER nurse during the when the HIV came out. And this was in when they didn't know what it was, and they didn't have gloves. But she sits me down when I get back, and she goes, "Hey, I know you're going through it right now, but we need to take steps." Because again, I had played rugby the entire day. My hands were cut up. She goes, "The police will not tell you if, it's a Hippocratic oath. They can't let you know what her medical records are. You can't reach out to her. You need to go and get medicine." So I needed to take.
You just have to assume that.
You have to assume that whatever. You have to assume the worst.
All of the bloodborne.
Yeah. So I had to get 2 antivirals. One you see on TV is PrEP, and the other one was oh god, I can't remember the name of it. It began with a Z, I think. But anyways, they're 2 antivirals. They are not widely accessible except within certain areas. I could not find a pharmacy that had both of them in stock and that took my insurance.
Savannah.
I wasn't in Savannah, but I was back in Maryland. I was back in
yeah.
D.C. and I couldn't find one that would take my insurance. So I'm having to pay at minimum $1,500 or like drive 3 hours to Philadelphia or to get something here.
Yeah.
It was messed up. And then there was this.
That's crazy.
It was ridiculous. And then I was on a call with somebody at this pharmacy, and they're like, "Have you tried the Whitman Walker Foundation?" I'm like, "I have no idea what that is." So my answer is obviously no. And they go, "Oh, okay. Well, here, give them a call. They deal with this every day." So the Whitman Walker Foundation is basically like the pharmacy and the hospital clinic that like came up during the HIV pandemic to like take care, like when nobody would take care of them. They're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, we'll take care of you." And now they just kind of morphed into like that continuously. So like they're the continuous running clinic for, street kids who end up contracting viral diseases, and now they're like getting their life back together. But
Yeah.
that's their clinic.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a really nice spot. Awesome people, which I'm about to say. So I'm calling this woman up, and I'm like, "Hey, do you have these prescriptions?" And she's like, "Yeah." "Do you need them filled?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can send you them." And she goes, "Okay, what's your name and everything?" She thinks I'm one of their continuous patients because they don't really get new patients.
Here's a new guy.
Yeah, and she goes, wait, what's going on? Like none of the thing, like you sound so like tense. You sound like none of the answers to your questions that I'm asking you make any sense. And I told them the story that I just told you guys. I'm like, I was in a shooting. I got covered in blood. I wasn't shot or anything, but I did give first aid, and I don't know if I'm safe or not. And the doctor has prescribed me these medicines. And she goes, "Oh, okay. Listen, drive on over. We'll get it figured out. No worries." So I get there. It's in northwest DC, I think. And I pull into the spot. And as I'm parking, the woman's like, "Hey there, Adam. We got you sorted out. We got both drugs. We gave you a coupon. It's gonna be $40."
Wow.
Wow.
I'm like, "What?" $40, 400, 4,000, 450.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, $40. Like, what's like? It is hysterical to like. Have you ever been? I don't think I've ever been in such an emotionally different situation where she is like, dude, just take the medicine and go. I need to get to my lunch break, and I'm like barely keeping it together.
Thank you. Yeah.
And she goes, do you know how to take the medicine? I'm like, no. Do you know? Like, I'm like, she goes, okay, you take it, at this time of day. You can't, you can drink if you want to, but mind you, you're gonna feel lousy. And if you need to, if you get, and obviously as you do the whole screening, because you get tested multiple times for HIV and the other diseases as you do it, it goes on to 6 months. You don't need to take it beyond that, but the testing will let you know. And then if you need to restart it, you can, and you'll be fine. And she's like, you're going to be fine. Like, you're within the window by a very large margin. Like, you're going to be fine. And I got back into my car, and I cried like a baby with a diaper rash.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
I was like, they'll talk about, good
Relief.
deeds. Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
That was hysterical. Like, looking back on it, it's funny, but like that organization, awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And that's, they're, again, to be of service to people when they need it, and to help somebody who literally, again, I'll say, you probably saved that young woman's life. Certainly if it hadn't been for you, I'm sure the nurse would have done something, but I mean, you were an integral part of that. And if you had not quit football,
I did quit football.
Well, if you had decided football wasn't your path and never played rugby, you would never be there, because nobody ever really knows. Again, what the fuck? Nobody knows what's going on ever.
But I was exactly where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah. And grateful for it too, I'm sure. We sobered up real quick, I bet, didn't you?
Yeah. I was like, the funny thing is like when we were driving back, like, I got very drunk on the bus, and I just wanted to sit there in the corner alone. But it was nice, we were talking about the community and the people being around you and everything. I was happy with just knowing they were near, and they were like playing the games, and they were shooting the shit, and they were, playing music and stuff along those lines.
You were in your own little world.
I was in my own I had my own little seat on the bus, had my hoodie up, and I was just like staring out the window for the entire trip back north. And I'm just like, I am good to not be a part of any discussion right now. But it was nice to know people were near me. And sometimes, to everyone listening, sometimes that's all you have to be. Sometimes it's just very comforting to people going through a difficult time to know that there are people there.
Yeah. You're never, there's
Words don't always have to be said.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're never alone. I don't really, I don't, walk everybody's path in their shoes, but I don't truly believe anybody's ever really alone out there. You must have somebody. So, and if you don't, I'm sure there's tons of opportunities for people to find help. So if you had a message to other young people in today's world, knowing what we know about the kids and all the stuff they're going through, if they wanted to be of service or help, what do you think the best way they could do that is?
Well, if in the moment, I think the statement is like, don't be afraid. Like, just, it's okay to be, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be afraid in a certain way, but like, don't let that stop you from doing something that could be good. But in the broader sense of like, how do I impact my community? Yeah. Find out what you like and see who else needs it. Like, if you like cooking, go to a soup kitchen. Yeah. If you like, sports, volunteer with a youth program. If you like, reading, help at the library. If you like, writing, go, depending on how old you are, if you're a young person, if you're in your teens and you like writing and stuff, there's plenty of adult literacy courses out there. There's that you can help teach. There is always something that somebody can do to contribute. Even if it's like the smallest thing. Like this is going to sound really stupid, but on my door, on my apartment in D.C., I have bins that have dog treats and candy in them that I label dog treats and people treats, because I want to just, give somebody a nice day.
Free candy.
Which is, I always say to people, like, I'm the kind of nice that, like, either
it's totally off-putting.
Like, I'm either gonna do something horrible, like later on in life, and everyone's gonna be like, oh my God, we didn't see it coming, or like I'll get a bench named after me 30 years after I die. Yeah. And my buddy goes, dude, you give free candy to people and like randomly just walk to people and talk to them. Like, no one's gonna not think that you're gonna do, like, when you do something terrible, it's not gonna be a surprise.
You're so nice that it makes people awkward.
I would be. Well, luckily, it's good to be awkward around me. I'm the easily awkward
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, no, it's like, oh, what is with that guy? Is he that nice?
Yeah.
And after now years of knowing you, obviously we know it's genuine, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's still,
It's like us on the dance floor on Saturday.
that was great.
Oh,
That was-
God.
That's
yes,
great.
it
We
was
got good footage of that.
Yeah,
Good time.
I
Good
cannot
time.
let you have a camera around me ever again. Like,
Why?
there's too much documentation.
I think we'll just,
There's
maybe
too
we'll
much
like,
proof.
maybe I'll snip a little bit of it and put it like right here, or
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
put it
just-
in between, you know?
Just
Just a commercial break.
Just
like,
the one from the piano bar on this side and the one
yeah,
from
no,
the,
we're not ever showing that one.
I mean, we probably should never know.
Ever showing that one's not a.
That's not a good.
That's not a shareable one. No. So yeah, man. I mean,
But, may I ask you a question?
sure.
You're the father of two young men and the father of a young lady as well. Like,
Mhm.
what do you think are some things that you'd wish society would do more for them? Like, not like handing them out or anything along those lines, but like, where are the areas in the community and in the world today where you see, like, God, like, why can't we just fix this? Like, it's not difficult, and it's something that's clearly needed by more than one person.
So I think it's a really loaded question, and I think the simplest way
Yeah.
to put that is there needs to be kids of a certain age. They need to hold each other more accountable for what happens.
Oh, okay.
The greatest, in my opinion, check of yourself when you're that age is first surrounding yourself with the right kind of people, which you don't know.
Mhm.
You know, you don't ever know if they're right, and you're never going to listen to your parents about it.
Yeah.
But as a parent, I think it's important to show your children what friendship looks like. Okay?
That's a good point.
And I think by doing so, you can teach your kids to choose the right kind of kids, people to surround themselves with, which will infinitely decrease their chances of probably getting into some variety of trouble. 16 and 17-year-old boys always going to make trouble. That
Yeah.
never changes with history, right? But I also think that those kids should be holding the children that maybe aren't. They should include them if they can, but then hold them accountable when they don't do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about bullying or, calling them out or making fun of them online. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm saying, hey, man, what you're doing is not. I don't know if there's a right or wrong, but what you're doing is not cool.
Yeah.
And I think that our generation did a great job of that.
Yeah.
There was always that you could always, at least say, hey, man, this is not right. This is what we should not be doing. And then in turn, depending on your kid, I think work is a really good thing. I don't think enough kids at 16 go to work anymore.
Mhm.
If they're available and they have good grades, and I'm not talking A's and B's, I'm talking about a kid who's passing and is going to be okay and going to make it through the world. If they can, they should work. And if they can't work, they should find an opportunity to volunteer. If you do one of those two things, I think you set yourself up to be on the right path to being a good human. That's just my opinion. Same thing with my daughter too. I think that having a good circle of friends, being loyal to those friends, especially as girls, because girls get checked,
They get clicky.
they get cliquey and catty. But staying with that group of friends in your female circle, in your little tribe, is really important too. And even if you only get one, if you get just one, I've been fortunate enough to have two really good friends my entire life. Most people don't get that.
No.
And that's the same for him. We have a mutual friend that has been our best friend for over 30 years as well. We have each other no matter what. And we meet new people that fall into those categories, but it's never going to be the same, right? But I think kids, like my boys, they have good friends. Our oldest son has a group of 3 friends that they've been through some of the stuff that would usually, I'm talking about distance and change in lifestyles and stuff like that already, that would normally have broken up a group of kids. He's got 3 really good friends that they will stay friends, I believe, forever. And they may live across countries or different. They will always have an opportunity to, and I think that's where the third part of what I'm going to say is going to sound crazy. Use the technology wisely.
Agreed.
We have it. It's there. We're on it now. We're starting this program, this, TikTok and Facebook and all of these things that are important to a part that's going to play a big part of our society as we move forward the next 20 years. Don't use it for the bad stuff that it can do. If you can't, and this is
Because you can.
just because you does, and this is for me, who's not maybe always had the best outlook on life. especially when bad things happen, just do good if you can. Make a difference if you can. You don't need to be mean to people. You can be off-putting. You can be who you are. Like, I'm okay with who I am, and I know not everybody gets me, but believe me, I'm never out there to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
People are hurt by the things that I do and say. It's not that I'm trying to hurt you. It's just who I am. Be okay with who you are and own it. Because if that's how you feel on the inside, if you feel like I could be hardline about these things and be okay with the consequences, which might be not everybody likes it, do it. You're already making somebody mad. Every day you wake up, you put on your pants, you go to school, you go online, you talk to your buddies on the headset, whatever it is, you're already doing something to make somebody upset. So be okay with yourself anyway. Because I'll go back to what I said way earlier. If you can't be okay with yourself, how is everybody else going to be okay with you?
Yeah. There's a good quote from Winston Churchill that, Quentin Churchill's obviously Winston Churchill, in case anybody.
Quentin, I thought he was maybe his cousin or something.
Yeah, no, right? Good. He's less of a fun guy.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill had a very famous quote. It goes, "You got enemies? Good. It means at one point, at some time in your life, you decided to stand up for something."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Because, and I'm going to quote, I think it was Kanye.
Read the room, dude.
I think it's not a good idea. There's nothing good about that concept from that man.
I think he said, if, when they hate, let them hate.
When they hate, let them hate?
Yeah, let them hate. Just let them do whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to make an impact on your life. That's how they feel. I used to say this all the time. This is a me thing. It's not my problem that you have a problem with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. You have a problem with me? Knock yourself out. I don't give two shits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to please you. I'm here to please the people that are really important in my life. And when they have a problem, sometimes it's not even my problem.
There's a...
Yeah. No.
There's a saying that a guy I sailed with on a ship once. So many of the things that I say are things I said to the guys on the ship who are very eccentric characters. One of the ones was, there are 3 things you have to do in this world to be a fully functional human being. You have to pay your bills, you have to wear pants, and you have to return the shopping cart. If you do those 3 things, you have 100%. Everything beyond those things are bonus points. And he then goes on to say, like, over the whole thing, over months that we're on the ship, he goes, paying your bills. We have responsibilities in life. We all, whether or not we walk into them knowingly or unknowingly, we have responsibilities. Some of them come out of nowhere, out of life. You need to accept them and take care of them. That is your responsibility as a human being. Wear pants. You are not the only person in this world. You will have to engage with other people, and some of that involves you dressing to the occasion, understanding your environment and behaving accordingly. Wear pants. Don't have your thing hanging out there. Don't, look like a fool. If you're going to a job interview, dress up nice. If you're going, if you're going to a theater with your girlfriend because, you want to show her something nice, don't wear a hoodie and jeans. Put on a pair of slacks and a button down. Show her that you care about the thing. Return the shopping cart. Some of the most important things you will do in life give you absolutely no benefit. Returning the shopping cart is one of them. You will get no benefit from returning the shopping cart. You are not helping yourself in any way, shape, or form. You are hurting yourself. You are wasting your time. But it will benefit somebody else, and sometimes the most important things you can do in life are things that will benefit you in no way, shape, or form, but will help other people. So, to everybody else out in the world, if you're worried about what you have to do, pay your bills, wear pants, return the shopping cart.
I'm going to make a t-shirt.
I know.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny you said that because I had a very interesting meeting this week. And there's a point in this meeting where we're talking. I'm not going to be specific because I don't want to put these people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, not that Anyway, one of the guys says to me, he was trying to use an analogy. And listen, I'm not the smartest guy. I've been around a while. I got some miles on me, And he uses some analogy to the point where it's like, he doesn't believe that anybody can actually be completely selfless. In other words, he doesn't believe in an act to benefit another person solely. So any act of service that in his mind that he does, in some way, he's doing it for himself. Which I told him, I'm going to tell you, I think I disagree with that. Because so often when you do things, whether it's engaging in the synagogue, right? Or rescuing somebody, or coaching youth football, or anything like that, for me, none of it has ever been about myself. It's always been about helping somebody else. I don't care about winning games. I don't care about what anybody thinks, like the parents. I don't care what they think about me. Of course I want to be nice, and of course I want the kids to learn something. But I don't want the kids to learn something for my benefit. It's for their benefit, to help them.
Yeah.
To me, do I find joy in it? Yes. Does that make me does that selfish act of my own? I think joy is a pure thing. I think you get it when you do something that's good. And I think if you go chasing joy, you will find misery.
100% agreed.
So I don't think it can be a truly selfish act to do something of service, whether it's rescuing somebody or spending time with the youth at your church. Mark's about to have another coughing fit. Jesus, man. I just don't subscribe to that.
No, agreed.
Hang on. Give this guy a second.
Should we talk about the chicken?
Do you need to leave? We're going to talk about chicken. Do you need to leave the room? Are you good? Oh
I
God.
think this is going to be my sign off, actually.
Are you?
Yeah, I just can't.
You need some cough lozenges or something, bud.
Would you like I have some bottled water here.
I'm good.
It's a good baby bottle of water.
Thank you, guys.
You leaving?
No, I'm going to be here, but
Okay.
I'm going to stay by the microphone over there.
2 weeks, you'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
try not to cough everywhere. Thank you for sitting there. I just don't. I've never felt that. I will say,
legs out. This is nice.
in recent adventures, I've never felt that way. I've never done it to be like, I'm gonna go win this championship. I had a parent tell me after a season was over, I had just been, I was just having fun coaching spring or whatever it was, and I had some kids come from that had been with a different age group, and they were coming to work with me, and I had developed, it's not the right reputation, but as kind of the coach that wasn't gonna, I don't want to say push your athlete, because I think there's different ways to do that, but as a coach who was going to put your kid in the right position regardless of what you thought. Anyway, we had this kid come, and he had been so broken by his first season in fall, and he was just coming to spring to see if he wanted to ever play football again. He had been so broken by those coaches to where he was afraid to practice because he was afraid to get yelled at because he thought he was going to do something wrong.
Wow.
And I pulled that kid aside the very first day of practice, and I said, I don't care what anybody has said about you. You're trying. You're putting the effort in. And I went on to tell him, I hate to say it, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But it was something to the effect of, you are the effort that you put in, regardless of what the outcome is. You're doing what you can to be out here, to participate. And if you give me time, I will help you get to that point, whatever it was. And about 6 months later, I get a text from his mother, and it was coming in. It wasn't 6 months, but it was coming into the upcoming fall season. She wanted to know if I was going to be coaching him, and I wasn't. And I said, I'm not. And she goes, he still talks about that speech that you gave him the first day of practice.
Wow.
That's all he ever talks about. When he talks about football, he talks about Coach Mike telling him this. If I never coached a day in my life after that, I would have been satisfied. And I have kids that have been disregarded by previous come up to me to this day and say, you told me, and I don't remember any of it. It's just because, my goal had always been to help these kids get through whatever they're going through. And going back to what I said to the guy on Monday, and I said, these are situations where when you get into life like that, when you get into doing things that are beyond you, you never think about if you're doing that for yourself. and I truly think that there are a handful of people that can truly be selfless when it comes to acts of service, whether it's in the split second of, making a decision, do I want to go and hold somebody's, life in my hands, or help out with, I think I always joke, we said it last week, I think Mark, when he's said and done with his career in his life, he's going to be a rabbi. He loves so much to get this next generation of young people into like really being a part of the Jewish community, because it's so fleeting anymore. Yeah. And he does that just because it's not for his own self. It's for what's right to do for the future generations. Yeah. And and I think I would love for that to be this. I would love for us to 100 years from now, somebody pops this on, FaceTube or whatever it's going to be, and look and go, these guys, man, they had this limited life experience then, and maybe we'll learn something from it. If we go back and we're at 60 and we're looking at each other when we're in the 30s and 40s, go, man, I wish I knew what I had known then. I feel like everybody's still exploring and trying to get it figured out.
Well, another quote from a controversial human being, and this is something that I think I've talked to Leo about at one point. You about this. The idea. So this quote is, a person's education is not complete until the day they die.
Yeah.
And the conversation you and I had about this was distinguishing between school and education. Like, you're constantly learning. You should be constantly learning. Now, this quote came from Robert E. Lee, just so that's a controversial person of it. But the concept of that is, exactly what you're saying. Like, in 40, 50 years, when the aliens, come down and they're allowing
we'll
us,
talk about that.
when the aliens are here, or when they finally reveal themselves. Yeah. Because they're here all along. Though they, when there is that concept of realizing later on the answer that was always there, but never really understood.
Yeah.
That's that summer I went with my grandfather down to Florida. Down in Florida. I'm in Florida right now. It was in Boca Raton. He had his my grandfather at the very end of his life was essentially blind, legally blind. He had macular degeneration. And but he had his own. Him and my grandmother decided to live separately.
Yeah,
55 years of marriage. Now they're living separately. And he had his wonderful condominium that overlooked this, lake. It was on the ground floor because, again, he was anemic, so he couldn't really climb stairs. And the last day that we're there, I made coffee and we're sitting there on his little porch, little Florida room, drinking coffee, looking at everything. And I said, "Hey, Grandpa, do you ever think that after 55 years of marriage, you'd be separated from your wife and having your own condominium in Florida, drinking a cup of coffee with your grandson, right before, I go off and play varsity football." And he goes, "Well, the cup of coffee and hanging out with you and all that kind of stuff, I can't really say, but the separated from grandma and having my own place, yeah, I can say that I've thought about that. I've given that a couple of times. I've thought about it." I'm like, "Really? How long?" He goes, 20, 30 years.
That's funny. Let's take a quick break because we're going to come back, talk about a couple of things, and
wrap it up.
I don't know about wrapping it up.
All right.
We'll see. All right, let's go. Well, two more things I want to talk about.
Then
we'll call this thing a wrap.
We'll call it a podcast.
So you talked a little bit about spending that time with your grandfather towards the end. He was what? How old then?
He was 86.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you spent that time with him and cherished that time with him. Do you think that there's a lesson to be learned, and this is true for this one too, there's a lesson to be learned about the time and how you felt gracious to spend time with him, and sometimes how you tend to argue with your father because he is the way he is?
Oh, 100%. I have actually, this time back, I've noticed that the things that I used to argue with him about, I'm now laughing at, because I'm like, oh, this is just who he is. This is just
the way he is.
And it's, I think a lot of it had to do with recently my mother has been hosting my grandmother. And my grandma Cookie, who I love, is like my favorite.
What a great name.
Yeah, her name is Cookie, and she calls me Cupcake. I know. And my grandma Cookie can be a very trying person to be around. And And one of the things that we realize is that, you just kind of have to realize who the person is, and they're not being themselves to piss you off. Like, exactly what you said. Like, you are who you are. Like, I'm not meaning to cause anybody harm. And the exact same thing with my father and my grandmother. That they are the only, exactly what you said, the only things that you let bother yourself are the things that you allow to do that. So, like, I'm not going to give anything because my father may watch some of this, and I'm already worried about some of the things I've said. But, sometimes he'll behave in a certain way, and I'm like, no, I've already had this conversation with you. Like, why won't you? And I'm like, why does that bother me? Why? This is not a big issue in my life. Like, he can say this whole thing, and I can just easily move on from it and then go on to having a decent time with him, having a decent relationship with him. It's not a big deal.
This sounds so familiar.
Mark is back. He's on camera because he's potentially going to have a coughing fit over here.
And he has a corner.
But this is the same thing I talked to him way before we started doing any of this, is that I think maybe one of the benefits that I have, if you're going to find good in something, when my dad died, we were just recently pregnant, and it was a lot of shit going on in our life then. Yeah. And it was not the opportune time for that to happen at all. No. And there's never a right time for that to happen, by the way. But I don't get a chance to ask him questions, and it's not as bad now that I'm getting older and understanding life more. But you don't have that. I don't have that opportunity just to call him up and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And my dad was older. He was 70 when he died. He would have been 86 now, so he was older when he had me in his 40s, and he was in the Korean War, and there's all kinds of stuff that we don't know about him that I wasn't interested in when I was a kid. Didn't care, because you think you have the benefit of time. You think that because you never think that you're not going to be able to ask these questions that you want to, like, what were you doing in France? What are all these pictures? What is this? Whatever and nobody knows, because not only did he not like talking about it, but nobody wanted to talk about it. No. So, and those are just things about his life that I would love to know, not to mention the things that we've been through in my life. And that's what I try to explain to this one here is his dad I love his father. I love his parents. His dad is difficult to deal with. Most fathers are, I think that for me anyway, I try to take that in now as I consider being a parent to two boys that are getting older. I said this last week. I think I personally know it was a lot more difficult on my oldest son, because you're still learning to be a parent then, and you don't have the benefit of that yet, that you know of anyway. It's really difficult, and I'm happy if that's true for you and your dad, because I know that y'all tend to bicker a little bit because you vehemently disagree on a bunch of things that are very important topics that that are not necessarily to get into, but I'm happy that you seem to have found some grace with him, because he's not getting any younger.
It's one of the things. It's, to be honest with you, I can see myself doing a lot of these same things when I get older. So it's kind of this like make a bookmark of that in my mental memory and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's and part of me is kind of mad at myself now, like looking back on. Now, granted, some of the fights my father and I have had are genuinely fights that there were, like, he had said or done some things that were not okay, and and that was kind of me, a different level of things, as being a son learning to stand my ground as my own man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something that because of the situation that we had growing up was something that I couldn't always do, but a lot of them are. I think of it now. I'm just like, why was that a bit? Why was that something, both for me and for him?
Yeah.
Like, why are these things and I'm just realizing now that, that it's now my responsibility to recognize this is how just when I was a young man and you couldn't tell the 19-year-old anything and you couldn't tell the teenage boy anything. I'm sure my father had to have that realization, like, all right, this is just who he is, and I'm just going to have to learn how to deal with this.
Ride it out.
My father is now 74 tomorrow. And I'm like, this is who he is, and he's not a bad guy.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, right.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And he ain't a bad guy, and this is just something that he's going to do, and I need to realize that it's not the end of the world. It can be frustrating and and I may say the same thing over and over again to him. But you know what? It just is what it is. And I've realized I've learned how to respond to him in a way that I'm like, okay, this isn't, you know, I'm able to like convey what I'm saying and like not make a big deal out of it, not let it go down that road.
That's something I'm
That's
still
healthy.
learning how to do.
Yeah. It's hard because there's nobody, like I talked to my therapist on the drive down here. I'm like, there is literally no person on the planet who is better at pushing my buttons than my father. Like there is no human being better
just
at
like
it.
Mark.
Oh my God.
Like
Yeah.
he
It's like they know how to get under your skin.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
I got to have a good conversation with my dad the other day.
Sure.
I actually, sometimes the way I work is better with writing, so I can get words out and get him to read something as opposed to getting the words out in the moment, because I'll forget what I want to say. I'm not going to go completely off, but something I told him, I said, was that I know that we're still going to piss each other off. We're going to get on each other's nerves, but he deserves to know
By the way, he's reading this from his phone.
that I think the world of him.
Oh, that's
You know,
good.
I had a lot of nice things to say,
Yeah.
and you know, it's, and of course, you know, we yesterday night had our little spat, but you know, that's just the dynamic that we have. But we know at the end of the day that the love is never compromised.
Right.
And you know, I felt the urge the other day to have this really heartfelt message so I could get it out to him, and you know, it was tough. I was crying while I was typing this up.
Yeah.
But you know, and I know my father. He's similar to me with the emotions, and you know, I ended up walking in and giving him a big hug afterwards, just to, you know, but I had to get those words out without saying it, and then I just reinforced it, you know. But
And I'm sure it made you feel better.
I didn't do it for me.
You know,
It felt good to have our moment and understand that, you know, we're both living our lives, and he's in a different chapter of his life, and he's going through a lot of changes in his life physically, and pain brings on many different emotions.
Yeah.
And you know, right now he's dealing with some things. He possibly needs to have surgery, so he's angry, and that gets taken out, unfortunately, on me or the closest family members.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, so, but
And
I get it.
You bring up a really interesting thing in the fact. Oh, wow! I was not talking to the microphone. You bring up an interesting thing about the idea of, you know, writing it down and doing that. I think one of the things that we kind of lose sight of is the fact that just because we're having something in the moment doesn't mean you don't have the right to pause that moment. Like I think one thing that we sometimes do, whether it be with a loved one, a spouse, a significant other, a child, or whatever. You know, we're having a fight, and you realize there is something you want to say, there is a meaning you want to get, but you don't want to do it wrong, but you don't want to end the thing because you think it's important there. I'm a big believer in the idea that, like, hey, if this is not going a right way, get the fuck away from it. Like, hey, I've said to multiple people, like, listen, we think differently right now. I don't want to say something that's going to offend you. I don't want to do something that's going to be mean. If you give me a minute to just collect myself so I can say the right thing to you and be able to convey it in the right way without it getting twisted up, because I don't want to make this about winning the conversation. I just want to be able to say what it is I want to say. Like, that is something that I've done a couple times.
Well, sometimes you got to give it the 24-hour rule.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you're married. You're married. You've been married.
He tried.
Yeah. I mean, you gave the good old college try. I mean, you guys know more about it than
He
I
tried
do.
real hard.
Yeah.
He did.
Mm-hmm. If I can give you guys a compliment, one thing you brought up. Yeah, I know, I'm a complimenter. One thing that you guys brought up that I thought was really interesting is you are your kids take a lesson from you, as in who the people you have around you. And I fully believe that you guys have this wonderful community of friends. You know, honestly, God, I consider myself fortunate to be there. You know, so I won't go into, you know, political things along those lines, but, you know, my friends in New York, I have a wide spectrum of friends who believe many different things. And I'm like, yeah, I have friends who believe.
Hey, listeners, if you're running a small or large business and want to keep your IT running smoothly, you need to check out Computer Quest. They take the hassle out of managing technology, whether it's cybersecurity, asset tracking, or even full-service IT management. They've got you covered. I've been working with Computer Quest, and let me tell you, it has been seamless and smooth end to end. Their expertise and support make a real difference. Plus, they can source hardware from the brands you love at competitive prices, so you're always getting the best value. Don't wait for tech issues to slow you down. Visit cqbits.com. That's cqbits.com to learn how Computer Quest can keep your business moving forward. And make sure to tell them Permanent Mark Podcast sent you.
To what you believe in, and they're in Florida, and they're like, well, why can you be friends with them? I'm like, because they're fucking awesome people. Like, if there was ever an issue, I'm not gonna get you wrong. There have been issues at my house with my father, and they have let me know about this. They are the greatest fucking people alive. That is why I am friends with them. But you and I consider myself very fortunate to be a part of, to have been accepted, because I know that you guys go back, 20 odd years, 23 for you, 30 years in some cases. I've known him for 7. He probably has a pair of shoes that he's had longer than me in his life.
100%, buddy. I do.
So you've built a really great.
I think I got rid of them.
So you have a.
There's a joke there. There's a whole thing there that I cannot believe you just said that.
I actually do know the one you're talking about. I don't know who it's related to, but I know that I've heard that statement before.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But but one of the things is, one thing that I think you also are good examples of, and all of you are, is you have a very strong family. You have a very strong partnership. My family broke up when I was 5, but it's bad in some places, but you guys are still around. And you're still associating with one another. You're still functioning. You're still making it work in some semblance of a manner of functionality. My family broke up when I was 5, and neither one of my parents did anything with a significant other until I was 20. So we've on Saturday we were, you guys don't know about this, but all people, you guys being the people I'm speaking to now, the guys in the room, we know about this. We were joking about the eventuality of me having a child, and the fact that all of these people who have adult children are be laughing at me and
so
joking. It's and I'm the same. One thing I've always wondered about is one of the reasons why I am at 35 years old, single, unmarried with no children that I know of, is that because I never had an example of that. Do I not know what that looks like in my life? And if that is of the case, your children will not have that issue. None of them will. I know that you are. I know that Mark, you've worked very hard in multiple partnerships in your life. You have your ex-wife even. But even more than that, one thing that I've always respected about you was during the pandemic, you and your ex, you did homeschooling, and you also taught the other ones. You also helped out with them as well.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm that goes to the whole idea of the community is bigger than what you think it is, and doing something selfless for people. But that, if I can give a compliment to the whole group on that.
I think I don't know. I can't even tell you why we're like that. I mean, it just
because you're good people.
Well,
relationships are work.
It's work. It's hard work, and I think the benefit that I think that I do have is that my parents they were great. My mom is a saint walking. Okay,
she is. She's awesome.
My mom's wonderful, and my dad was a good guy. They had a good relationship, but you forget things as time goes by. I think that our other mutual friend, his parents have been together a really long time too. And then Mark's parents have, they were literally almost children when they were younger than we are now when they moved into the neighborhood when we were kids. So, and then Miranda's parents have been together, 39 years, 40 years.
Parents are 42 years married.
Yeah, so they've been together. So Mark and I, even when we were younger, knew that we would fight and then still come back over. And I think that relationship, everything is like a house. You build it with bricks, or whatever. But to have a good foundation, you have to start somewhere. And I think that because we've had this long-term relationship, and because when Miranda and I got together, there was always this overall theme of I don't give up on stuff, and neither does she. And I think that's important, that you both can both give up sometimes, but you can't ever give up at the same time.
Interesting.
And I think that's true of Mark and I relationship too. There's times when I think I've given up on him because of what things he was doing that I just couldn't be associated or
I didn't like the person that he was, but he never gave up on me, and that's a reciprocating thing, and that's what it takes to be successful, in my opinion, as getting a little bit older here. I think it's really important to remember that. And talking about the kids now, my son, my oldest son, I feel like he has that, and I feel like it's going to be very fortunate for him. And having you in our lives has enriched our lives too. It's not like you're just, you are off-puttingly nice when you first meet you, but it's genuine. You never see that. And we've had friends that we've lost over time because we have not even just fundamental disagreements, just you stop seeing eye to eye on things.
Yeah.
In a relationship,
and they get their feelings hurt.
it's important to remember that you can fight.
Miranda's talking right now.
In relationships, it's important to remember that you can fight.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
you should fight and tell
You
the
should.
other person
Yeah.
how you feel,
Yeah.
and then work through that and move past your issues.
Growth is always on the outside of your uncomfortable zone. Always.
You have to
Yeah.
grow
Yeah.
together, even as friends,
Yeah.
as partners, it's parents and children.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
your parents are still growing. in
Yeah.
your
And even
50s,
when you're
60s,
older, when you're
70s.
I
no
still
one,
need a break from you sometimes.
no, but even when you're
Often,
if
yeah.
you're an older
You just took one off the podcast.
Yeah.
That wasn't long enough.
as a adult child, because you are, as long as you have parents that are breathing, you're an adult child. They're learning how to parent you still. You're learning how to be a child to them in some ways. You're always your parents' baby, no matter what. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. They may not agree with what you're doing, but then in most cases, they're there for you when you need them. And as your parents get older, my mother, just like I said, just turned 80. She's there for us, and we're there for her, and those things are really important. But I know that's not always the case, and I know, I don't think it's your. I think that if you ever find somebody, which could be sooner than later, you never know.
I got a date tomorrow. No, it's Wednesday.
Yeah, but you will just solely because of the people you've surrounded yourself with, you're gonna have great kids. They'll be really good kids because you're a good person, first and foremost, and second of all, your sphere of people, at least down here, maybe tiny, but it's good.
It is. It is.
And
We need to go to Temple.
Oh, 100%. I
Are
would
you,
love to do
guys
that.
going on Sunday? Maybe.
I'm not gonna be here. I'm
Are you
gonna.
leaving?
Well, depending on
Leaving.
depending on what the situation. I'm probably leaving either Saturday or Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Don't.
Okay.
I have to.
So now that we got into the hard stuff, let's talk about something fun.
Oh no.
Oh no. Should I move?
No. Yes.
All right. Hang on.
Yeah.
All right. Excuse me again. I have to.
We're going to hope that one lasts while we talk about aliens. This may not make the cut, so I have to do my sign off in a minute. Is that one still going?
These both are. So
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna put them both on you just in case.
Oh, good, because one of them's going to fail eventually.
Yeah.
This is what it is to start a podcast. Just so you know, not everything goes the way it should. I think the first time you do it, maybe even the second or third time, but we have all this equipment that we're trying to get to work together. And as long as you can hear our voices, it's going to be okay. You may not always see my face or Mark's face or Miranda's face or our guest face, especially right now. But this is what
I'm still
people say.
here.
They want to start a podcast. You want to do the work. You want to find your guests. You want to have people on that you know and love. You can do all that. There's nothing that stops you other than you. You are in your way. If you have a desire to go and do something like this, if you've got a phone in your pocket, you can make it happen. If you've got TikTok, you can make it happen. You don't need 100 followers. You don't even need 10 followers. If you do it for you, somebody will find it. That's all I'm going to say about it. Now, I'd like to talk about something that was brought up on TikTok today.
Ooh.
Well, actually, I brought it up last week, and then I had some people chime in on it. Where are we at on this alien thing?
So, to begin with something that is remarkably philosophic, Arthur C. Clarke, he's the writer of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he also partnered with, I don't know, the guy who did some other person.
Are you going live? You should go live.
So we're going live. Let's do it live.
Let's do it live.
So Arthur C. Clarke, he's a very famous science fiction writer, and he's quoted with saying, "There are only two possibilities in the world. Two possibilities: either we are alone in the universe, or we are not, and both scenarios are equally terrifying."
Yeah,
No,
that is accurate.
no.
Yeah.
I personally believe that aliens do exist. I think it's
Okay.
yeah.
So that's I think so. There. What would you define as an alien? I think there's a lot of wild shit out there about
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think. Well, let's just say this: if there is there life, as in, is there something in like an amoebic or bacteria form
No.
somewhere in the universe?
I mean, like humanoid.
Or just intelligent, because
Well, yeah, it could be octopuses.
I mean, it could be a blob. I mean, it's Neil deGrasse
something that
Tyson.
has a tangible. That's the coughing chair apparently.
No, it's a burping chair now.
Oh, okay.
I'm also holding in a fart because I don't know what that sounds like on a microphone. The
Okay, this is podcasting, guys.
Yep.
Are we live? Not yet. She's trying.
Do you have the tripod for that?
She's gonna do it freehand. I think. Are you?
So I'm again.
We're all using all the tripods currently. No, don't step in front of the camera. That's okay. It's not a big deal. Okay.
That's all right.
So no. What are you doing? Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
I think aliens are real. I think 100%.
Okay.
I mean,
are they here, and are they traveling back and forth?
so the question is so for them to be here,
Mhm.
there'd have to be a reason, right?
Well,
Are they studying us? Like, because they can't be helping us. Because God help us all if they're trying. Like, we are so fucked right now. Like, but I don't think they're helping us. Should they be studying us?
it's possible.
Like, could
Maybe
they
they're
be
trying to help us realize that.
No, because I mean, if they are, then they're doing a really shitty job of it. Like,
Okay.
what are they going to
So-
do? Release a bunch of TikToks about like, hey, this is how you make clean water out of sweat. I don't fucking know.
So I made a video last week. I said, hey, where are we at? Basically, what we're talking about right now. Where are we at on aliens? And I had a guy chime in today after a week saying they're holograms. What you're seeing that we're allowed to see, essentially, what I think he's saying to kind of extrapolate what he just basically said in a quote, is that what we see and perceive as these aliens that we've seen, especially going into last year, were some variety of holograms. To which he also said, if they can do that with Biggie and Tupac, that's a valid point, by the way. They could be holograms, and it could just be. I mean, not just
how do they project them?
I don't know. That's the thing. Maybe he also thinks we're in a dome. If he's watching on TikTok Live, maybe he'll chime in. I don't know. But I mean, that's a possible. I think I'm more. I think where I am as anything could be possible when it comes to whatever these extra dimensional.
That one. So I mean, go on. I don't know.
No, go ahead.
So I heard.
Can't hear you, huh?
What's up?
TikTok Live or Facebook?
It doesn't matter.
Who gives a shit?
Who cares?
It's either the Chinese or Zuckerberg.
Is it?
I don't know anymore. I don't know. I mean, they could. What if they're both aliens? Not Chinese people, but I mean, like.
I think if Zuckerberg was going to be anything, it would be a T1000.
Do you think he's that cool?
Oh no, I don't know, man. Like, think about the transformation that he's done in the last 5 years.
Yeah, if I had $70 billion, I could do a couple good transformations too.
I guess so.
I mean, I feel like if I had $70 billion, I could do a lot better transformations than him. I don't know, Mark. If you're listening right now, if you could, do a cool transformation, let me know.
Zucky. But yeah, I think it's a hot topic, and I think it will continue to be until we get some type of. I mean, what they came out and said after the election was, they were privately flown aircraft over there in New York, New Jersey, which is possible, I guess. But
No.
I don't know. I've never seen a drone that big in my life.
I've seen some pretty big drones. Like some of them are
Well, I mean,
utterly massive.
you do work in the Pentagon.
I do.
What are you doing?
I don't know. He's doing something. So there's another theory, and this one I thought was really interesting.
Sharing it.
This theory I thought was actually pretty cool, and it has, I think, a certain level of validity to it, but it's kind of hard to figure out if it's like which end of the story it comes from. But the one of the main reasons why we think about aliens, and some of the areas that really stand out is the fact that there are points in history, famous points in history, where aliens seem to appear, or things that we think are aliens
Sure.
appear.
Yeah.
You know, you remember there are stories of like things happening at like the I think it's the siege of Constantinople in like 1453, and there's issues like obviously throughout World War II, you have all of these major these pilots and whatnot talk about like, oh, these orbs that we don't know what the heck it is they are, and other things. There's a theory that sometime in the future, humanity suffers this cataclysmic event,
Yeah.
and we lose all record of our history. And aliens.
So we're in a loop.
Well, no, aliens are the evolved aspect, the evolved section of humanity that survived this cataclysmic experience, and they're going back in time to try and learn their history that we have since forgotten.
Do you know who Graham Hancock is?
I believe so. Yes.
He's the guy who thinks that there was a global cataclysm somewhere around 14,000 years ago that wiped, the majority of humanity off the planet.
Yes, I remember this
That
story.
there seems to be no historical record except for what they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls that spoke about a potential cataclysm that did happen, and that during that cataclysm, as humanity began to rise from the ashes, which I don't know if that's even debatable, because I think we've been around a lot longer than we're given historical credit for, that there were, essentially what you're saying, a species that came from somewhere other than in that time and place to came back and say, okay, here's some sticks and stones, figure it out again, and then you just wind up having these resets every 20,000 years or something. It's fascinating. Whether or not it's aliens or we just don't know what's going on. There are so many there's also the possibility we're in a simulation to begin with.
That one is interesting. Like that one is.
How we doing on Facebook Live?
We got any live? Any people?
It's late. Whoever this is, good night, because we're gonna end the live now because it's like super late at night.
It's 11:15.
Huh?
It's 11:15.
Oh.
Who is it? Is it like an ad?
No, we're in a networking. What's up, buddy? We're talking about aliens.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on aliens?
If you can hear me or not? Yeah.
It says bring them on video. I can do that.
Is
Bring who?
aliens?
The aliens?
Does he
Bring
think?
him on? FaceTime him? Is that what he's saying?
No.
Oh.
It's asking me if I want to bring them on the video.
Oh, that's weird.
Oh, they want a video chat with us.
Listen, I need to do some research. I'm a little old. I don't know how this
Okay.
stuff
Okay.
Anyway,
The person there, if you do the video with us, you can't actually go into the video that's on the podcast. I don't think there's an ability
I
to
don't
do
think
that.
It might be. We could be. Maybe we'll figure it out.
Maybe.
I know I can interview people from anywhere in the world.
Okay.
So
here's a bigger question.
yeah.
If there were aliens and they came to Earth,
Yeah.
do you think we would try to mate with them? Because I 100% think we would. First off, I personally would.
Okay.
Just like that.
Of course you would,
Just like
Yeah,
Jay from
well, that's no
from
standard.
Clerks.
Because you're such a nice
That's why
guy.
you're not a father yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to an alien, baby.
Because I keep trying to beg an alien and they're not really.
What if it's just a blob? Like a hot. Like those stress balls you get.
Yeah.
What if it's just that?
How would we do a bris for that child? Like, what would that look like?
It would be partially human, I would think.
Probably at least.
What if that's the case, and we still share like 98% of the genome?
So that is that's another big theory, is the fact that we share 98% of the genome with apes,
Yeah.
but we can't mate with them. There's also the
Yet.
theory yet. I don't know if anyone's tried. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Or maybe we did and now we can't.
There's another theory that
If we if evolution.
And that didn't happen.
there's
There's no way.
something about the I can't remember the whole thing right now, but there's a way that the proteins in our system are chimeria. I'm not somebody gonna talk about
Who
that.
cares?
Anyways, the proteins go in a certain direction.
And theirs go in the opposite.
If there's a question like if we go to another planet and the proteins are set up in a different way, would we be able to eat them? And the likely answer is no. Which is there's a basis of a good book called The Andromeda Strain, which is about a space probe comes back.
I think you read too much for me.
Okay, it's also a movie.
Okay. I'm in on the movie.
But anyway, this space probe comes back and it's got an alien virus in it, and it attacks humanity. And because we have no way of doing an immunity to it, it like wipes out whole sections of the country. But then there's a theory that if it's a virus that evolved in a different environment, how could it attack us?
That's a great question.
The concept of
fascinating.
aliens like just fucks with your mind.
It does. So yeah, I'm not convinced that we'll ever really know because
Yeah.
like
Until they show
I
up.
would think that most people think there are some variety of alien or whatever it is. I think there's a lot of people. There's people that call them fallen angels. I think that's a fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
That's fascinating as well because this sets a tone for saying you have a certain set of beliefs that start and end with a certain time as well because it's based off of their religion. I think that people think that time travelers. I think I think all of it is plausible,
Yeah.
or it could all be true. In other words, maybe we think about this as one set of things that do come back and move through time. I mean, they're here because we've seen the Tic Tac video. Everybody's seen that thing go from the freaking 30,000 feet to the ocean. It's out there. All of these videos. Yeah, this is a Tic Tac video. It looks a little Tic Tac, and they're flying around. This was like 15 years ago.
There are like numerous reports from like naval aviators and Air Force pilots and whatnot. Actually, the most documented one happened in I think the 1950s and 1960s. But there was this weird orb that showed up over D.C. and the
Yeah.
Air Force scrambled jets out of Dover Air Force Base. I don't think it was Andrews yet. I don't think Andrews were there yet, but they scrambled them out of Dover Air Force Base. And the pilots, like afterwards, like the thing disappeared, but the pilots were like, "This thing, these guys were, Korean War, World War II, aces, guys who have like shot down some of the best pilots in the world." And they were toying with us. They were in front of us until they didn't want to be. Then they were completely away from us.
Yeah.
They circled all the way around us. They got behind us. We were doing evasive maneuvers, and it was like they were toying with us.
Well, I think that's why. I think if you're gonna, I think there's words. It's possible they're not even propelling themselves the way we think of.
100%.
I think that it's possible they're moving through space and time, which would make sense if they are interdimensional.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, and that's kind of one of the things that makes me wonder about aliens in our area. Like, what is special about us? Like, why would they be here? Like, are they trying to learn? Like, are they studying us the
Yeah.
same way that we study an ant colony? Because
Yeah.
if they can come here from wherever, anything that we have is like beyond is nowhere near important to them.
Well, and then people think that they showed up because we developed nuclear technology for the first time ever, and whether or not there's numerous recorded human histories or not, the worst thing and nuclear technology is definitely up there with bad stuff that we can do.
I mean,
It's great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no,
tons of
it's-
upside, great clean energy and all that, but also the ability to blow up the planet if we just so desired.
yeah.
We just watched a show. Oh my god, it was good. It's called Paradise.
Oh,
It's
I
on
love that
Hulu.
show. I just watched that,
Bro.
dude. That episode where they talk about the end of the world.
Let's
and
not
like,
spoil it for
I know,
everybody.
that
but
was good,
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
The ending.
that was
Man,
good.
So I mean, I kind of figured that was. I mean, well, I can't wait for season 2.
Do you think that you would want
Okay,
to?
wait. Are we going to talk about spoilers or?
No. I'm just
Okay.
asking. Like, if there is a,
I wouldn't want to know.
if there is a, the only thing I'll tell you about Paradise is taking place in a bunker, because the world has. You learned that in episode 1. It's not giving anything away.
I didn't know.
Oh no.
I knew at the end of episode 1,
Oh, that there was a bunker.
but I didn't know. Watching the episode, we're like, whoa, shit. Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't see. We don't watch previews.
Oh. At the end. Okay.
I just heard it was a good show, and it was
Yeah.
over. And she doesn't like to watch shows. They come out every single week. She'd rather watch the whole thing.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. My father would agree with you on that. The
And fall asleep
Yeah.
would you
middle of the second episode.
want to
100%.
live in a paradise enclave? Do you think you'd want to survive the apocalypse?
God, it's hard to say because every Fallout, watching that too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Silo, have you seen that?
Yeah.
Okay. All of those have this overall theme that you're not being told the truth.
Yeah.
So I think if that were going to happen, that is very much the case of what they would tell us. They just like they do now, they try to control the narrative. And when I say they, I mean those super elite peoples that are probably really running everything. I think they would never tell us. So
100%.
and within one generation, you would never know.
Mm-hmm.
Within 100 years or less, you would never know there was anything else other than what you're experiencing right then and there.
Yeah.
Which is true of some of our history too. Our history as a species is sketchy at best.
Yeah.
we try to do a good job, but anything that's, let's say even 2,000 years ago or more is what the fuck happened? Nobody really knows.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, screw 2,000 years ago. I mean, shit, things that happened 2 years ago.
Yeah. I mean,
mean,
yeah.
That story I told you, that could be blurred and not even realizing.
That might be this experiment.
Yeah.
That might be the aliens experiment. It might be that, we're a hybrid of something that existed. I think that, obviously when whatever made our planets combine to get this unique little blue sphere is not that unique after all. There's hundreds of millions of planets that have very similar compositions to us, which is why the universe is constantly expanding. Well, unless we get knowledge from beyond, we'll never know.
Yeah.
Which we talked about this last week. I think that's a little bit. That's a little bit like faith, like knowing that you'll never know. So I think I'm okay with not knowing.
Yeah,
I don't need there to be aliens.
Yeah,
I'm okay in my life. If aliens never show up, I would love to see one.
Yeah,
but I think I'm okay with not knowing too.
Yeah, every other person in human history has never seen an alien that they know of. So why is it a big issue? Why is it something that would be a big hinge point from my point?
Yeah. So aliens are probably real, but who gives a shit, basically?
Yeah. Until someone can give me a reason why I would care. Yeah. Like unless they're the ones pulling the strings or pulling the levers of human history, like that. If we are a simulation, if they're the ones dictating the simulation, like that's the only reason why I care. Like if they're not, then like okay, cool.
I mean, they're probably responsible.
Unless
for that.
they're really hot, and I can bang one.
Jesus.
I'm just saying. Like Jay from Jay and Silent Bob or Clerks. Homeboy fucked a Martian. No, too much.
No, it's all right. Yeah. I mean, so you be that guy in Avatar is what you're saying.
Oh, 100%.
You be that guy.
100%.
God, creep.
I'm aware.
Okay.
I am that I am. Like I said, if I offend you, I apologize, but
it's great. So it's getting late, getting a little long in the tooth here.
Did we ever decide we're going to call this guy?
What are we going to call him?
I don't know. So maybe should we like put names out there to the ether? Like
yeah, let's name the rooster guys.
Okay.
I'll take suggestions. There's absolutely nothing in it for you other than we will call him whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't decided if he's a chicken that's parading as a rooster, or if he's a genuine rooster that is very angry.
I want to call him Jacques the Cock, but I don't know that I have a vote.
I like that one. What else we say? Kevin the Clucker. Kevin that Clucker. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything that's fun. I bet Quentin, if he's still watching, has tons of suggestions because he's funny.
You did say the sip from the Yoda cup while on the discussion of aliens is what does it for me.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's meta. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think aliens might be real and nobody cares, and the camera just went off.
No more space.
Which one?
Okay, that's fine. So we get this last camera.
All right.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you for having
me. Coming down to visit, this might not have been on your bucket list, but it was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed your point of view on, just kind of like giving yourself that perspective if you could now. That's really important. That'll help out a lot of people. So.
Was not expecting that. That was an interesting thing. It kind of had some self-realization moments there too.
Maybe I should have been a therapist or something. Maybe
I'm thinking you might have
missed his calling.
Might have been a good idea.
Still can.
Yeah, I like to talk to people. I mean, it's like I like to get. I think I was put here to tell people stories.
I don't think you could be a therapist.
No, I think I'm here to help people share and put their story out
You
there.
think you'd be paid to be a therapist?
I don't care about your story anymore.
Miranda is giving a firm head shake. No, you cannot be a therapist, Mike.
Yeah. Is Dr. Phil really the therapist? Is
he is. He is. He actually. And Dr. Oz is actually a doctor. I learned that recently.
Okay. Well, shout out to those guys. Yeah. So, anything you want to say in closing? Any sage advice you want to give?
I think I've gone through a bunch of little idioms here already, but I want to thank you guys again. This was kind of cool. Like I've always thought about, there's a joke that my buddy once told me. He goes, the reason why there's so many podcasts is because guys who don't know what to do podcasts. Girls who don't know what to do an OnlyFans.
How about Only Dads?
The dad bod. But no, I've always thought about, like, you know, what it'd be like to do a podcast, and I never imagined like the level of intricacy that you guys would go into with it. It's actually, you guys can't see this right now, but there is a setup behind these, like behind the cameras. Like there's a ton of cool shit, and it's really professionally done. So well done,
Semi-professional.
I think it's really. I mean, dude, I'm in a headset. I'm speaking into a microphone. Like there's multiple cameras, multiple lights. There's a whole. You know, we talked about what we were going to talk. We discussed what we were going to talk about beforehand. Like this was a. I mean, if this is semi-professional, then you're doing a phenomenal job. Also, it's time 3. So I appreciate you guys inviting me and thinking too. And
Yeah.
really, I look forward to seeing what you guys do with this. This can be fun. I hope maybe it can be on again sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you're down, we'll just have you in, even if you're a producer of the day.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
So, yeah. Well, exciting couple of weeks coming up for you guys. We're looking forward to sharing our next guests in the next 2 and 3 weeks with you guys. There's going to be a lot of information, a lot of good stuff to learn. Keep tuning in. Thank you if you've listened and watched this whole thing. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends. Don't hide your kids. Don't hide your wife. Tell everyone. Share it all. Share everything.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks. Good. Let's go. We're done.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good. Fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts. I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong. I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth. Can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have your doubts, not what I'm about. Have your cloud, it be raining now. I keep making sound, go another round. I'm legend bound, can't stop me now.